Chapter 2790. Occasionally, they have to rely on people like us to donate. Those law incarnations have nothing to do with the money, so they can be restrained a little. But he doesn't understand my painstaking efforts. He kicked me. Ning Shu was speechless. She was dumbfounded. She was completely convinced. She had never seen such a troublemaker so self-righteous. This person was definitely a big trouble. He was shameless. Ning Shu shrunk her chest and lowered her presence. She picked up the bag and turned to leave. She didn't want to talk nonsense with him anymore. No matter how much she said, it didn't make sense. She had already rejected him countless times. Her mouth was blistering, but the other party just couldn't hear her. She could press him to the ground and ravage him now. Obviously, she couldn't do it. She had to think about the consequences of fighting here. The old pervert wasn't afraid, but she couldn't ignore it. She had just caused trouble not long ago, and now she was causing trouble again. He would definitely shoot her. Why was she being targeted just because she was picking up trash? Why did he have to pull her into a pyramid scheme? This guy had a way with words. This matter was clearly his scheme, but he could still say that letting her get the Earth Law imprint was for the sake of the organization. If she didn't pay attention, she would be led into a ditch. Stay away from such a poisonous person. Ning Shu lowered her head and quickly picked up the trash, far away from him. Tan Lang caught up with Ning Shu. I have already planned the path we will take in the future. We will definitely be able to overthrow the rotten organization. What do you mean by we? I don't want to join your organization. Was it okay to make decisions without permission? We are still in the startup stage. We need a motivated child like you. You are being enslaved by the grand uncle. Pitiful, pitiful child. Ning Shu was speechless. He looked like an unscrupulous boss. He talked about ideals and feelings, but not about money. Ning Shu ignored him and lowered her head to pick up the debris. Tan Lang kept chattering beside her, but Ning Shu pretended not to hear him. She was like a dog skin plaster that couldn't be shaken off. He couldn't pay attention to her. The more he did, the more energetic she became. Ning Shu tried his best to focus on picking up the trash. Tan Lang was talking beside him. Ning Shu didn't say a word. He picked up the full bag, tied it up, and put it aside. Then, he picked up another bag and continued to pick up. 50 bags was not a small number. Listening to Tan Lang's words, he also learned a lot of information, and it was information about the organization. For example, Tan Lang scolded the main system for being a sanctimonious hypocrite who put on airs and was more black-hearted than anyone else. He scolded the grand uncle for being a fool again. Ning Shu looked at the grand uncle who was handling the star stones. Ning Shu scolded An He for being a perverted man with a twisted aesthetic. Ning Shu looked at An He in his military uniform. Her eldest uncle was a pervert who had a twisted love affair with the dolls he had made. When an abyssal prefect eats a soul, the shit that comes out of it is in the shape of a human. Ning Shu, how could the words coming out of this person's mouth be so twisted? You're a pervert too, okay? Ning Shu looked up and cried. Mom, the people here are so scary. Her eldest uncle clearly gave her the impression that he was a gentle person who would smile whenever he had nothing to do. Now, her previous impression had completely collapsed. As soon as she saw the abyssal prefect, she wondered if his shit was in the shape of a human. Do you think these people are sick? Tan Lang asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu, you're all sick. Get lost. Ning Shu dragged the bag and ran quickly. Tan Lang chased after him. Ning Shu almost cried. Ning Shu ran to the grand uncle and said to him, he scolded you for being a fool. When Tan Lang heard this, he immediately stopped and looked at Ning Shu helplessly. Poor child. Don't be with these sick people. You'll become like them too. The grand-uncle looked at Tan Lang. You're having a good time. Tan Lang stared at the grand-uncle bitterly. What do you want me to do to satisfy you? I've been picking up trash for a long time. How long do I have to pick it up? The grand-uncle was expressionless. If you don't want to pick up trash, go blow the wind or light a candle. Tan Lang dragged the bag and walked away. He looked back at Ning Shu and moved his lips. I'll wait for you over there. You have to come over. Ning Shu mouthed, I'm not going. After Tan Lang left, the grand-uncle said coldly, don't mix with him. This person has a problem with his brain. There was definitely no problem with his brain, but there was a problem with his cognition. No, there was a big problem. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, he always said you were a fool. The grand-uncle glanced at her. Ning Shu shut her mouth and turned to pick up the trash. When it was time to connect the planes, Ning Shu took the star stone liquid. Since he was here to pick up trash, it would be unreasonable if he didn't get some benefits. Tan Lang appeared behind Ning Shu and said faintly, if you need this, you should have said so earlier. I'll get it for you. Ning Shu shuddered. I don't need it. I just think it's shiny and beautiful. I'm going to take it back and paint it on the walls of my system space. Damn, this person was tirelessly trying to pull her into the pyramid scheme organization. If she accepted his things, it would mean that she had joined the organization. She didn't have time to deal with this guy. She had a lot of things to do. She was tight on time, but she didn't feel bored. Tan Lang glanced at the grand-uncle. Ning Shu asked, did he tell you not to contact me? He said there was something wrong with my brain. Ning Shu was speechless. I knew he would slander me like this. He's the one who's sick. Ning Shu was speechless. She didn't want to talk. It was none of her business if any of them were sick. She still had so much trash to pick up. Ning Shu took a long time to pick up 1,000,000, and Tan Lang followed behind her like a tail. Ning Shu wanted to die. She was already tired from picking up trash, but she still had to follow a person who kept chattering and trying to brainwash her. Ning Shu ran to the grand-uncle's side and asked, do you have extra star stones this time? No. Ning Shu just came to ask and hide from Tan Lang. Ning Shu found that although this man despised the grand-uncle and scolded him, he was actually quite afraid of him. He basically didn't get close to the grand-uncle. Damn, he couldn't even stay calm while picking up trash. 1,000,000 was already annoying, but now he met someone who was even more annoying. While picking up the trash, he either ran to talk to the Grand Elder or an he. Tan Lang also wouldn't get close to an he, especially when he saw the huge number of troops. His eyes were full of fear. Ning Shu pounded the ground and cried. She really wanted to kill him. But she didn't know what the consequences would be if they fought here. The other big shots who picked up trash ignored Tan Lang, which meant that Tan Lang didn't have good relationships in the organization. They probably knew what kind of person Tan Lang was. What made Ning Shu angry the most was that this guy caught her and insisted on making her his underling. I won't do it. Chapter 2791. This was especially so when the people picking up the trash in the surroundings changed wave after wave, and new people came and went. But the people behind him never changed. Tan Lang asked Ning Shu, why are you taking so long? 100,000 is more than enough. Who gave this to him? Ning Shu asked, why don't you leave? Tan Lang rolled his eyes. I'm going to keep picking them up until grand-uncle is satisfied. Serves him right, serves him right. What about you? How long have you been picking up? Ning Shu, 1,000,000. Ah, poor child. Grand-uncle has been enslaving us like this. Do you want to breathe the air of freedom? Ning Shu, go away. You're seriously affecting me picking up the trash. When Ning Shu picked up 25 bags of trash, she felt a little tired, but not very tired. And there were countless planes that had collapsed. Ning Shu felt that dealing with these collapsed planes was the most important thing. As for doing missions, he felt that the world could be saved so that it wouldn't collapse. There were billions of planes. Just like humans, there were people dying every day for various reasons. Planes collapsed every moment. Picking up debris would make him vomit. Ning Shu just wanted to pick up 1 million quickly and leave quickly to get rid of greed. He probably couldn't beat him now. He had to endure it. When he couldn't bear it anymore, he didn't have to. When he could beat him, why would he endure it? He really wanted to push him into the reincarnation pool, but Grand Uncle was here. Greed had to worry about Grand Uncle when doing bad things. Ning Shu had to worry about Grand Uncle when doing bad things. Everyone who wanted to cause trouble had to worry about Grand Uncle. Ning Shu tied up the bag and sat down to massage his shoulders. What should he do with such a weak soul? She probably had the weakest soul here, but she picked up the most trash. A warm current flowed out from between his eyebrows and flowed all over his body. He felt less tired, but he couldn't help but want to be distracted. Ning Shu leaned against the bag and prepared to rest for a while. Anyway, as long as he picked up 1 million, there was no time limit. He could rest. Was your soul power sucked away? Your soul seems to be much weaker than last time. Ning Shu turned his back to Tan Lang. This was the first time he realized that a man could be so long-winded. It could be said that he was a weirdo. Could he give her some peace and quiet? Are you still not going to give up? Ning Shu turned around and asked, do you really not have any other underlings? Why do you have to hold on to me? I don't want to breathe the air of freedom right now. Her survival was a problem now. Freedom and whatnot could wait until she became stronger. If they were really duped, they would definitely become cannon fodder. The judge would never show mercy when he killed someone. She was afraid. Greed said, of course, I have many underlings. 7 kills, Army Destroyer, Tianfu, Taiyang, Taiyin, Tianji, Tiantong. Tan Lang counted with his fingers as he told Ning Shu. Ning Shu just chuckled and didn't say anything. Your soul is so weak. Have you never thought of getting some soul power to strengthen your soul? Ning Shu said, I actually have a lot of resources. I also have a lot of soul power. Ning Shu covered his ears. I won't listen, I won't listen, I won't listen, I won't listen. Now he was tempting him. Thinking about those law incarnations that had been duped, there were bloody examples. Ning Shu got up and ran over, asking Grand Uncle, do you have extra star stones this time? Grand Uncle, take 2. It wasn't easy. Finally, there were extra. Ning Shu picked up 2 and wanted to pick up 2 more. Only 2. Don't even think about taking the rest. Ning Shu put down the star stones in his hand. Although there weren't many, there were at least 2. Ning Shu took the bag and began to pick up the trash. Tan Lang was still tirelessly following behind him. Ning Shu couldn't take it anymore. Tell me, what's your purpose? There was a limit to teasing people. Tan Lang, poor child. Actually, I like poor and honest children. Ning Shu, he took a deep breath and ignored him. Ning Shu simply blocked his hearing. He couldn't hear anything and focused on picking up the trash. Ning Shu shook his arm. If he kept picking up like this, even his soul would feel pain in his arm. How long would it take to pick things up with his hands? It would be great if the vines could pick them up, but the vines didn't have the ability to pick them up. She could pick them up because of the big diamond on her forehead. But picking up the pieces one by one was really tiring. Thinking about how there were still so many pieces left to collect. She was even more desperate. Helpless, weak, pitiful. Ning Shu touched the big diamond on her forehead. Was there any way to make the vines pick up the trash? It was like controlling the vines to destroy the city. Controlling the vines to pick up the trash. The vines could be spread everywhere, equivalent to 1,000 hands. It was fast and not tiring. Ning Shu stretched out the vines and controlled them to pick up the debris. The vines wrapped around the debris, but the floating debris didn't move at all. Sure enough, she couldn't pick up the debris. Ning Shu really felt tired. Ning Shu was really too tired. He had to think of a way to make himself more relaxed. After picking up the debris, she still had to do other things. But just picking up the trash made her so tired that she wanted to vomit. How could she comprehend the space law and do missions? Especially since the main system no longer purified soul fluid and soul stones. If she wanted to obtain soul power, she could only do missions. Otherwise, her soul would always be so weak. Tired. This kind of ordinary law can't pick up the debris. Otherwise, I would have dragged those idle law incarnations to pick up the debris. Tan Lang shook his head. Tired, right? If you join the organization, I'll get someone to help you pick up the debris. Ning Shu squinted. Why don't you find someone yourself? The judge has been watching me and insisted that I pick up the debris here. I want to find someone, but it's useless. Ning Shu snorted. What organization? She had been schemed against even if she didn't join the pyramid scheme. If she joined, she didn't know how she would die. Was there no simple way to do it? She had to rely on her hands to pick up the debris. It cost 5 million every time. If she continued like this, she would be crippled. The vines were the most likely, but it was just an ordinary law of wood. It was nothing to pick up debris. There were already big shots leaving one after another, and big shots coming one after another. Before leaving, she had to find someone to take over and then leave. She still had more than 20 bags to pick up. The people around her came and went. Only she remained at the front line of picking up trash. Oh, and Tan Lang beside her. It made the life of picking up trash even more miserable. Ning Shu thought about it. Since the law of life could pick up trash, he would let the vines absorb the law of life. He condensed a drop of milky white liquid on his fingertip and dripped it on the law of wood mark. It was clearly dripping on the skin, but the liquid was absorbed by the skin. In other words, it was absorbed by the law of wood mark. S. Chapter 2792. I don't know if this will work. Ning Shu stretched out her vines again and wrapped them around the fragment. When she exerted force again, she could actually move the fragment. Really? Ning Shu was pleasantly surprised. She dripped several drops of milky white liquid on the law imprint. The leaves of the law of wood became even greener. Ning Shu opened the bag and used her mental strength to control the vines and let the vines throw the fragments into the bag. Slowly, she succeeded. However, Ning Shu was very excited. Although the speed was slow now, once she got used to it, the overwhelming vines could stretch out and pick up a lot of fragments. However, this consumed a lot of mental strength, especially when controlling the overwhelming vines, which required more vines. This was to let the vines do delicate work, which required full concentration and attention to the details. It was not to let the vines destroy violently, like destroying a city. That was very simple. Ning Shu simply opened the bag and let the vines wrap around the fragments and throw them into the bag. She only needed to use her mental strength to control it. However, the law of wood required a lot of energy during this period. Once she could not move the fragments, she would need to add energy to the law of wood. Ning Shu stretched out a few more vines. The vines stretched out in all directions, picked up the fragments around, wrapped them around them, and then retracted and put the fragments into the bag. Ning Shu only needed to open the bag with both hands and wait for the vines to throw the fragments in. Ah, a new era of garbage picking was opened. She could pick up 1,000,000 fragments just by sitting down and not be so tired. However, Ning Shu's mental strength was very weak now. After picking for a while, her mental strength was a little exhausted. Her vision turned black as if her body had been hollowed out. Even so, Ning Shu was very happy. As long as she increased her mental strength, the stronger her mental strength, the more vines she could control, and the faster she could pick up garbage. 1,000,000 fragments was a small number and could be done. Ning Shu felt dizzy. She sat down and rubbed her forehead. How could she make her spiritual power stronger without using the method of self-abuse to stimulate the spiritual ball? Greed's eyes flashed as he sat beside Ning Shu. Your mental strength is really weak. I have a way to strengthen your mental strength. Do you want to know? Ning Shu, no. Sigh, poor child. Greed sighed. My training method is very simple. Ning Shu blocked his hearing and closed his eyes to rest. His consciousness sank into his consciousness and saw the floating spiritual ball. The spiritual ball was still the size of a ping-pong ball. He had tortured himself a few times to stimulate the spiritual ball, but why didn't it grow bigger? At this time, the limitation of his weak mental strength showed itself. It was not enough to construct a spatial tunnel. Now, even controlling the vines to pick up the fragments had become very difficult. It was easy to destroy an ordinary house with vines, but to pick up a piece of debris, it required a lot of mental strength. As for the cultivation method that Greed mentioned, although Ning Shu was curious, he didn't want it. Besides, she was going to press him to the ground and rub him against the ground in the future. If she accepted his things now, she would have to bear the reputation of being ungrateful when she dealt with him later. If she didn't accept anything, there would be no psychological burden to pick it up. After discovering the method, Ning Shu was very happy. In the future, he wouldn't have to pick up the fragments with his hands. He could just sit still and control the vines. It was simply awesome. With 1,000,000 fragments each time, he might be able to complete it quickly. Increase his mental strength, increase it. Ning Shu looked at the spiritual ball timidly and carefully stimulated it. Suddenly, his head hurt as if it was hit by a hammer. There was a tearing pain in his soul. Ning Shu couldn't help but hold his head. It hurts. It hurts. However, there was only one way to cultivate mental strength in the system shop. Ah, poor child. Don't tell me you're cultivating that secret manual in the system shop. That's the theory. It makes sense, but the actual effect is not very good. Oh, that secret manual was made up by me to deceive people. I thought no one would buy it. I didn't expect someone to buy it. Tan Lang shrugged his shoulders. Facing Ning Shu's murderous eyes, he said, it makes sense in theory. After all, there are people who rely on self-abuse to strengthen their mental strength. And the mental strength cultivated this way is more resilient, and the spiritual ball will also become more resilient. If it's a mental attack, the spiritual ball cultivated by self-abuse will be obviously more resilient. Of course, the premise is that you don't abuse yourself. Ning Shu gritted his teeth. Can you shut up? There was a fly buzzing in his ear. Join the organization that pursues freedom, and I'll give you an improved version of the secret manual. You don't have to suffer so much self-abuse. The effect will be doubled. How about that? Ning Shu blinked his eyes. Ning Shu really wanted to slap him, whip him, and oil him. It wouldn't be enough to vent his anger. Tan Lang had an indescribable feeling. Bitch! I already said that I won't follow you. Do you think you're being polite to me? Ning Shu took the bag and left. In order to prevent him from following him, Ning Shu went directly to An He, who was closest to him. Fragrant Wind Man said, "What are you doing? Why are you running to me?" "I was pestered by someone, so I came here to hide." Ning Shu raised his chin in Tan Lang's direction. And he glanced at Tan Lang. "Why are you with him?" He's a deadbeat. Don't hang out with him. Don't be influenced by him. Oh, okay. He said that you're a pervert with a twisted aesthetic. What? And his eyes widened. That deadbeat actually said that my aesthetic is twisted. His is the twisted one. Fragrant Wind Man sneered at Tan Lang. Come here. If you have the guts, say it to me. Sigh. Tan Lang walked over and patted the dust on his shoulder. You're so dirty. Pay attention to your image. And he was expressionless. Do you believe that I'll chop off your hand? Tan Lang said to Ning Shu, did he say that I'm a deadbeat? He said that I'm an unbearable person. Actually, think about it. These people are really ignorant. They think that everything they do is right and great. They all look at me as a joke. They think that the organization is so huge that no one can overthrow it. They don't resist. Instead, they laugh at me. Who do you think is more insensitive? A group of insensitive people. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, this guy was obsessed with brainwashing him. And he chuckled. Don't talk so much. Don't talk so much. Pick up more trash. It seems that senior uncle's punishment for you is still too light. Tan Lang said, even if you punish me for picking up trash, I'll still say the same thing. Then go pick it up. When you pick it up, think about how to overthrow the organization. Think clearly. And he waved his hand impatiently. Obviously, he didn't want to say anything more to Tan Lang. Ning Shu waved. Come here. I have something to tell you. It's a secret. Chapter 2793. Looking at Tan Lang's despicable expression, this guy had too many tricks up his sleeve. Ning Shu, she didn't want to know any secrets. Ning Shu was really impressed. She knelt down to the big boss. What was the meaning of this? Why aren't you going to pick them up? And he glanced at Tan Lang. Tan Lang was afraid of he and looked back at Ning Shu from time to time. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Why was he looking at her? She definitely wouldn't look for Tan Lang. Even if Tan Lang had some shocking secret, she didn't want to hear it. It seemed that all the big bosses knew that Tan Lang wanted to overthrow the organization. However, no one took his words to heart. It was as if they were watching a joke. It was too boring. It was good to have a joke to watch. They could even use this matter to tease him. Why did Ning Shu feel so strange? He felt that this guy was jumping up and down, but the organization didn't take it to heart. They let him do work when he had nothing to do. It was better to cause trouble and have more reasons to pull him in. Tan Lang was resentful and afraid of the organization. After Tan Lang left, Ning Shu sat on the ground and fanned himself with his sleeves. His mental strength was exhausted and he felt especially uncomfortable. Tan Lang wouldn't come over and talk to her only when she was beside someone he was afraid of. She was really annoyed, and it wasn't just a little annoyed. She was targeted for no reason and was forced to be his lackey. Ning Shu didn't want to be someone else's lackey and be ordered around by others. She worked hard to be strong so that she could control her own destiny and not be erased. She didn't want to run errands for others, do things for others, and run errands for others' plans and schemes. And once something happened, the first to die would be a small fry like her. Ning Shu condensed 2 drops of milky white liquid and dripped it on the Woodlaw imprint. He had already found a new method, but because of his lack of mental strength, he couldn't keep practicing. Ning Shu glanced at he, who looked slender and tall because of his military uniform. He put his hands behind his back and looked around. General he, I have something to ask you. Ning Shu's tone was especially gentle as he was asking for help. He addressed the Fragrant Wind Man as General he. And he looked down at Ning Shu. What's the matter? How did you guys cultivate your mental strength? Ning Shu didn't expect that the secret manual he cultivated was actually created by greed. At that time, she had wondered who had come up with the idea of taking revenge on society. In the end, it was greed. Stimulating the mental sphere in such a way would definitely cause one's mental state to collapse. Moreover, greed had created this secret manual based on a theory. He didn't cultivate it at all. What a scourge. They even said that some people relied on this kind of self-torture method to cultivate powerful secret manuals. Ning Shu didn't believe it. Even if one managed to cultivate it, that kind of pain was enough to leave a deep shadow in one's heart. Ning Shu wasn't afraid of sweating and suffering, but he felt that he couldn't cultivate so painfully. She had been through so many painful days that she didn't want to be in pain anymore. To cultivate your mental strength, you first have to expand your sea of consciousness, then expand your mental sphere, Fragrant Wind said. She understood the principle, but how could she expand her sea of consciousness and her mental sphere? She knew the theoretical knowledge, but what about the specific methods? Ning Shu coughed and asked, then how do I cultivate? You didn't cultivate your mental strength? Ning Shu, she didn't have a secret manual for cultivating her mental strength. How could she cultivate her mental strength? If her mental strength hadn't reached a bottleneck, Ning Shu wouldn't have the consciousness and awareness to cultivate a secret manual at all. Well, it's both simple and complicated at the same time. Ning Shu, how complicated? If the sea of consciousness is a container, then mental strength is water. The bigger the container, the more mental strength it can hold. You have to cultivate your mental strength and expand your sea of consciousness. Well, how do you expand it? Ning Shu asked with a smile. Well, this depends on perception. There's really no way to teach it, so you have to rely on yourself. Ning Shu. Then how do you expand your mental sphere? It still depends on perception, but you can use a secret manual created by Greedy Wolf to stimulate your mental sphere. Of course, if you want to advance by leaps and bounds, you still have to rely on perception. Ning Shu, therefore, although she knew the process, she still didn't have a specific way to do it. However, she figured out that to cultivate mental strength, she first had to expand her sea of consciousness. Stimulating the mental sphere alone was useless. The container was too small. Even if more mental strength was stimulated, the container couldn't hold it and it would only dissipate. It couldn't be stored at all. Therefore, this secret manual was really deceptive. It only said to stimulate the mental sphere, but it didn't say the cultivation steps. Sigh, she was so conflicted. Ning Shu stretched out her vines. A few vines stretched toward the place where the shards were. The vines wrapped around the shards and dragged them to Ning Shu's side. Ning Shu reached out and picked up the shards. She didn't have to run around and control the vines to pick up the trash. And he raised his eyebrows. Your operation is quite impressive. Isn't it an ordinary law? How can you pick up the shards? Ning Shu just said, I have my way. It's just that my mental strength isn't enough. I can't control many vines. If her mental strength was enough, she could stretch out many vines and pick up many shards at the same time. Ning Shu really hoped that she could become a tentacle monster. 1,000,000 shards were picked up very quickly. Ning Shu imagined the scene. Vines blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Oh my, I'm so excited. It was just that her mental strength wasn't enough to control so many vines. Although it depended on perception, how could she do that? How could she make her sea of consciousness bigger? How could she make the mental sphere bigger? In short, she was blind. What Ning Shu was most afraid of now was perceiving this thing. This reminded her of the space law. She hadn't comprehended anything by perceiving it until now. If it was easy to perceive, she would gain something very quickly. However, when it came to the space law, Ning Shu was beaten to a pulp. But what could she do? She had to continue perceiving it. Ning Shu was very worried that she would still be like this when she was perceiving the mental strength in her sea of consciousness. If she was perceiving it too slowly, it would seriously affect her speed of picking up the trash. 1 million. It wasn't just once, but every time she came to pick up the trash, it would be 1 million. This was simply killing her. Fragrant Wind narrowed his eyes. Outsiders can't help with perceiving this kind of thing. Ning Shu grinned, a little depressed, and threw the shards pulled by the vines into the bag. Ning Shu's actions attracted a lot of attention. This was really a tentacle monster. They were all picking up the trash with 2 hands, but she had several hands. And she could develop many hands in the future. It didn't matter if everyone used their hands to pick up the trash, but some people were now sitting down to pick up the trash. They felt so tired and miserable. Tan Lang stood not far away and kept waving at Ning Shu. Chapter 2794. Ning Shu lowered her head and put her hand on her forehead, pretending not to see Greed. Greed was really looking for a sense of existence all the time. It was so lively that it was annoying. Ning Shu just wanted to stay away from this guy. As long as he didn't bother her, it would be fine. However, they were both permanent members of the garbage collection team. When they were collecting garbage, they would see each other most of the time. She had 1 million, but Greed had to keep collecting until Tai Shu was satisfied. The standard of satisfaction was really deceptive. Even if he was satisfied, he would still have to pick up more if he said he wasn't satisfied. Greed's heart was probably about to explode, but he could only endure it. Then, he secretly comforted himself and encouraged himself. She wanted to overthrow the rotten organization and breathe the fresh air of freedom. No matter what this guy did, she just wanted to pick up garbage peacefully. She didn't want to overthrow the organization. At least, that wasn't what she should be thinking about now. Ning Shu couldn't avoid Greed. When her mental strength was cultivated, she would be able to leave quickly every time the overwhelming vines picked up debris. She didn't believe that Greed would scheme against her all the time. If he really pissed her off, she would definitely turn hostile. Ning Shu controlled and trained the vines. If her mental strength was exhausted, she would rest for a while. When her mental strength recovered a little, she would start picking up garbage again. Although she didn't control many vines now, the speed of picking up garbage was still much faster than picking up pieces by hand. In order to be lazy, her brain worked faster than usual. As expected, laziness was the driving force of human development. In order to be lazy and live a better life, humans learned to use tools and save physical strength. In order to be lazy, they built machines. Some time-consuming and labor-consuming tasks were handed over to machines. It was easy and efficient. It was simply awesome. If it wasn't for the fact that picking up 1 million was too tiring, Ning Shu wouldn't have thought of changing and wanted to make herself more relaxed. Even if she used the vines, the time would probably be pushed back. As long as she raised her mental strength, the speed of picking up garbage would be even faster. Come here. Taishu Ning Shu waved his hand. Ning Shu was originally sitting. When she saw Taishu's actions, she pretended not to see and turned her body. In any case, nothing good would come out of looking for her. Good things would never happen to her. And he nudged Ning Shu with the tip of his military boot. She's calling you. Don't pretend you didn't see her. You're so pretentious. Ning Shu, could it be that she had been too obvious? She should be more subtle next time. He couldn't express his displeasure too directly. Ning Shu stood up and walked towards the Grand Elder. He asked, "Is there anything I can do for you? Do you have extra star stones?" "No, how many vines can you control?" Grand Elder asked. "Damn," Ning Shu said calmly, "at most a few. I can't control more. I can't even pick up 1 million shards. Don't even think about giving her more. She couldn't do it. It's the law of wood to begin with. Why can't you control more vines? Is it because you don't have enough spiritual power or a lack of life source? Grand Elder asked. Ning Shu. It's not enough. I'm only controlling a few vines now. I feel like I'm dying. I can't live anymore. At this time, of course, she had to be cowardly. She couldn't show off too much. The task given by the leaders was just to talk. She had to overwork herself. You don't have enough spiritual power. When the task is completed, go to Sangliang and get the secret manual. Ning Shu stared at the Grand Elder's reflective glasses and froze for a moment. He gave her the secret manual to help her strengthen her spiritual power so that she could control more vines to pick up garbage in the future. If she accepted it now, she would be enslaved to death in the future. Ning Shu just asked, "Who's Sangliang?" A consultant in the consulting room. Ning Shu, the silver-haired man, was called Sangliang. When you've picked up enough, go get it, Grand Elder said. Ning Shu just said, "Oh." He was conflicted about whether to get the secret manual or not. Was it free? Or did it cost money? According to the silver-haired man's character, he definitely needed money. It would probably be a huge sum. This kind of secret manual should be hidden by an organization and wouldn't be made public. Sure enough, the things placed in the system exchange store weren't good things. They couldn't be compared to the secret stashes of an organization. The problem was that they were sold at a high price. Ning Shu suddenly felt like a son-in-law who lived in his family. It wasn't easy for him to pass the imperial examination. In the end, if he wanted to get promoted and get rich, he had to sell himself to a powerful family. The problem was that he hadn't seen his wife yet. If he gave her some resources, she would be at his beck and call in the future. Those who received charity might not be happy. Ning Shu dragged the garbage bag, walked to Anhe's side, and asked him, "If the organization wants to give me something, should I take it?" Fragrant Wind Man, take it. Why don't you take it? Do you think you're not a member of the organization if you refuse something? It doesn't matter who you are, but if you die, who knows if you're a member of the organization? Ning Shu could only comfort himself in his heart. At least he had some value now. But he was very unhappy. If he didn't do his best for the organization, he would be an ingrate. The organization gave him resources, but he didn't work. What an ingrate. Forget it, he still needed to pick up a few more bags. He would go find the silver-haired man. He looked at the contents of the secret manual. After Ning Shu took a few drops of star stones, he rushed to the next place where the plane collapsed. Ning Shu walked in the space passage. When he saw Tan Lang approaching him, he immediately sped up to catch up with senior uncle and Anhe in front. Tan Lang stared at Ning Shu with resentful eyes, which made Ning Shu's hair stand on end. He was a grown man, yet he was looking at her with such an aggrieved expression. Ning Shu was really annoyed. He felt that Tan Lang's heart to let him join the pyramid scheme organization was even more determined now. Could he still pick up the garbage properly? As soon as they exited the space passage, Ning Shu stood next to Anhe. And he looked at him from the corner of his eye. "Can you not follow me? What will my soldiers think of me? What will my military uniform think of me? Your military uniform is a human. Damn, skin on skin. Is he really a human?" And he was speechless. Ning Shu saw his bad expression and said directly, "That Tan Lang wants me to join an illegal organization. I want to give my youth to the organization. How can I accept his invitation? But this person is so annoying. He won't come over if you and senior uncle are beside me. I'll use you two as a shield for the time being." And he glanced at Tan Lang, who was picking up debris and coming over. "It's really annoying. Who asked you to be so weak? Who else can I find if not you?" Ning Shu was speechless. It seemed that Tan Lang was only annoyed by her. He probably thought that she couldn't beat him and didn't dare to resist, so he caught her and brainwashed her over and over again. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He stretched out his vine and began to pick up the debris. The vine brought the debris in front of him. Ning Shu held the bag with his hand, and the debris fell into the bag one by one. It felt so good. However, after a while, his mental strength was exhausted. He had to rest for a while before picking it up again. He also had to drip a milky white liquid for the wood law to absorb. Chapter 2795. After the wood rule absorbed the liquid that took away the life rule, the vines had the power of the rule and could move the fragments. Some of the bosses saw Ning Shu's operation and couldn't help but frown. It was so tiring to pick up trash with such a tentacle monster. It felt like the other party was a pay-to-win player and they were ordinary players. What was precious was not the wood rule but the life rule. When the two were combined, it directly became a tentacle monster. "You're a new girl. What's your name?" a man asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. She was now really afraid of people who took the initiative to talk to her. Ning Shu said, "I just came." "I know you just came. I'm asking for your name." This man had bulging muscles all over his body. At first glance, one could tell that he was a man who was good at martial arts. It was the first time she saw a muscular man. Ning Shu asked, "Who are you?" "I'm defeating armies." "Defeating armies? Wasn't that the underling that Tan Lang mentioned?" Ning Shu glanced at Tan Lang. Tan Lang met Ning Shu's gaze and avoided it. "Underling? Probably not. Are you the underling that Tan Lang mentioned?" Ning Shu was surprised. The flesh on defeating armies' face trembled. "What underling? That guy likes to talk nonsense. I have nothing to do with him other than having some star fate." Ning Shu was speechless. He knew it. Tan Lang was definitely a general without an army. Ning Shu said, "I'm Ning Shu. I just came to pick up trash not long ago. Let's take care of each other." "Okay, okay." Defeating armies stared at Ning Shu's vines. Ning Shu secretly put away his vines. Defeating armies slapped his thigh. "If you had appeared earlier, everyone could have been more relaxed. If you picked up more trash, we could have picked up less." And he said, "Sooner or later, the task would have been assigned to us." Defeating armies chuckled and reached out his hand to pat Ning Shu's shoulder. Half of his body was knocked askew by defeating armies. "Next time, help me pick up more." Ning Shu's expression did not change as he said, "I want to pick up 1,000,000. "Wow, that's a lot." I can accept 100,000. Ning Shu didn't want others to come knocking on his door. If he helped one person today, another person would come knocking on his door tomorrow. That day, you helped XXX pick it up. Why didn't you help me? Are you looking down on me? You helped me pick it up, so I'll give you merit points, okay? She was now like a rookie who had just entered the workplace. If she couldn't stabilize herself, such things would happen every day in the future. If he couldn't even solve the problem with 1,000,000 yuan, he couldn't help others pick it up. "Why should I help you?" It was the first time they had met, and he was asking for her help right off the bat. Was that possible? Defeating armies came over to see if he could get the tentacle monster to help. Seeing that she was also being squeezed by the organization, he left. As soon as defeating armies left, Ning Shu smacked his lips. Probably many big bosses wanted others to complete the task for them and then give some merit points. These big bosses didn't lack merit points. With more than 100,000 merit points, he didn't need to pick up the fragments comfortably. Ning Shu wanted to do the same. Defeating armies just made the first move. She refused, so no one should come and ask for a snub. "My tentacle monster is my business, but it's impossible to take advantage of her because of this. She had a lot of things to do." Ning Shu reached out her vines to pick up the fragments. When her bag was full, she tied it up and put it aside. She took another bag and opened it with her hands. She held the edge of the bag so that the fragments could fall directly inside. She didn't need to touch the fragments with her hands. When it was time to connect the planes, Ning Shu went to collect the star stone liquid. She had collected more than 20 drops of star stone liquid. She didn't have enough fragments. The star stone was like a liquid. Then it would slowly solidify and become a solid crystal. It was no longer sticky. When it turned into a liquid again, it was sticky again. Through a few vines, Ning Shu finally picked up 1,000,000 fragments. This volunteer activity was completed. There would be a next time, and a next time. There would be many more in the future. Ning Shu said to Granduncle, "My task is done. I'm leaving." "Granduncle, done. You go and count the bags. There are military people counting. How can I lie? 100,000 fragments in 5 bags. A special army would record these fragments and drag them into the warehouse." Ning Shu was very tired. He just wanted to go back and lie on the sofa. His soul was much weaker than before. "Granduncle, how's your comprehension of the space law?" When it came to this topic, Ning Shu's whole body was tense. He said carefully, "It's okay. Comprehension requires opportunity. Take it slow. No rush." Granduncle frowned. "When you go to get the secret book, ask Sang Liang about his comprehension of the space law." Ning Shu grinned. The importance of the organization now only made her hair stand on end. She had survived when she was struggling. She didn't need the warmth of the organization at all. When she needed help and begged for star stones, others could choose to sell or not, but she had no choice. The so-called help now was nothing more than to let her quickly build the space channel so that she wouldn't disturb others every time. She had survived when she was weak. There was no reason why she couldn't survive now. The warmth now was just scratching an itch through the boot for Ning Shu. It was useless. After all, only when one was strong would they have the qualifications to be noticed. Only when one was valuable would they be valued. Why wouldn't they take a look when others delivered it to their door? What was the purpose of being strong? It was for this. Ning Shu laughed crazily in his heart. On the surface, he smiled elegantly and said, "I'll go." Granduncle pointed his finger and a stable space channel appeared. Ning Shu opened the black bone umbrella and walked into the channel, returning to the system space. As soon as he returned to the system space, Ning Shu's whole body was deflated. He directly lay on the sofa and didn't say anything else. His mind was tired, and so was his soul. Ning Shu lit agarwood and lay on the sofa. When he woke up, the agarwood had burned out. Ning Shu stretched and sat for a while, silently chanting the clear heart mantra to make his soul clearer. Then, he went to Wood City with the black bone umbrella and looked for the silver-haired man in the consultation room. Walking into the consultation room, Ning Shu looked around. Every time he came, the consultation room was empty. Was the silver-haired man's consultation room doing well? She also accidentally saw such a consultation room and then fell into such a huge pit. She spent a lot of money on this wild man. Could it be that the silver-haired man took the high-end route and provided one-to-one services? Once he came in, it meant that he would be cheated for life. The silver-haired man was poisonous. There were so many poisonous people in the organization. The silver-haired man lifted the curtain and came out of the room. Ning Shu wanted to go in and see why he came out from there every time. Chapter 2796. "Uncle Master asked me to come over," Ning Shu said. The silver-haired man nodded and took out a book. "This is a secret manual for you." Ning Shu took it and flipped through it. The introduction was quite comprehensive. There were books on cultivating soul power, using soul power to attack, expanding the sea of consciousness, and strengthening mental strength. This book had everything she needed. Ning Shu held the secret manual and asked the silver-haired man, "How much is this?" The silver-haired man just said, "No need." Ning Shu was speechless. It was more shocking that a money grubber suddenly didn't want money. "No, tell me the price. This thing is very expensive. If you want me to accept it, I'm afraid." Ning Shu said straightforwardly. After all, one had to be soft-spoken and soft-handed. It was the hardest to repay a debt of gratitude. Now that she didn't want money, she had bigger plans. This time, it was 1 million. Next time, it would be 2 million. Was she made of iron? Uncle Master said it's for you. You don't need money. Be generous. Isn't it just a secret manual? What's the big deal? The silver-haired man said. Ning Shu, ahahaha, according to the stingy nature of the organization, a penny invested now would be returned with 1 million in the future. I'll buy this book. How much is it? Tell me the price, Ning Shu said. She didn't want to take it for free. She would be unhappy if she took it for free. Don't take small advantages. If you take small advantages, you will suffer a big loss. Moreover, she had to be careful when dealing with the organization. The silver-haired man flipped through the pages and said without looking up, "He didn't ask me to take money, which means he's giving it to you for free. Take it. This is an internal item of the organization. You can't buy it." Ning Shu placed the book in her hand on the table. "I don't deserve it. How can I take other people's things for free? I don't want it anymore. Cultivation could be done slowly. Anyway, she had a lot of time. It was useless to be anxious." Ning Shu felt that with so many star stones, it would be better for her to slow down and take it one step at a time. She couldn't be too anxious. Ning Shu felt a little impetuous. She would succeed sooner or later. Why be too anxious? Perhaps his lack of progress in comprehending the space laws was due to his own mental state. He was too anxious, too eager to succeed, that was why he was dissatisfied with himself time and time again. Even though he had improved, he was not satisfied with this little bit of progress. Man's desires were endless, there was no end to them. She didn't have to worry about food and drink now. With some money in her pocket, she was much better off than before. Slow down, slow down. After thinking it through, Ning Shu pushed the book in front of the silver-haired man. I don't want it, thank you. Success that was too easy would make people inflated and distorted. Ning Shu didn't want himself to become twisted. What would he do in the future if he did all the things in the future? He would take it one step at a time. At the very least, he would not easily die. The goal that he had worked so hard to achieve back then was now about to be achieved. The silver-haired man looked at Ning Shu. You don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore, thank you. Ning Shu took the umbrella and ran out of the consultation room. Her figure was light, and her skirt fluttered. The silver-haired man picked up the secret book and walked into the room. Ning Shu walked on the streets of Wood City with light steps. He didn't need to carry so many burdens. His life was guaranteed, so why did he have to be so vicious? Slowly. The law of wood absorbed the energy of Wood City. Ning Shu checked the enchantment of Wood City and strengthened it. Then he went to the restaurant and prepared to eat something. He hadn't tasted the food in Wood City's restaurants. She usually went to the restaurants in Water City because she was an acquaintance and wanted to take care of business. She had never been to the restaurants in other cities. From now on, he wanted to taste the food in all the Law City's restaurants. Ning Shu walked into the restaurant. The waiter's face changed and quickly asked Ning Shu to sit down. Ning Shu took the menu and ordered some dishes. Then he propped his chin up and waited for the dishes to be served. There were many people in the hall, and their eyes involuntarily glanced at Ning Shu. They obviously recognized him. Ning Shu ignored these people and drank tea while waiting for the dishes to be served. Probably Ning Shu's brutality made people afraid. No one came up to greet Ning Shu when he killed people in the Law City and took the imprint. Ning Shu was happy to be at ease. He didn't have to deal with people he didn't know. The food was soon served. Wood City's food was more refreshing than Water City's, and the taste was very good. However, there were too few plates. They were very particular about carving and decorating, and there weren't many things that could be eaten. What a big plate, and it was full of dishes. She didn't order many dishes, but the table was full. She ate alone. Such a big table showed how much she could eat. But no matter how much a soul ate, it wouldn't be full. Ning Shu ate all the food and said when paying the bill, "Make the plate smaller, they take up too much space." Shopkeeper, in order to deal with this female fiend, he had the chef do his best. The plates were beautifully arranged, and couldn't be more exquisite. The kitchen was really a mess. And he said the plates were big? Hard to please. The Law of Wood imprint was full of energy, and Ning Shu planned to go to Earth City to take a look. At the same time, he wanted to strengthen the barrier of Earth City. After all, with the power of the Law of Earth, he needed to strengthen the barrier. As soon as he walked into Earth City, he was greeted with a feeling of being as heavy as a mountain, steady and heavy. Earth carried all things and was incomparably heavy. Right, if Water City didn't have taxes, then did Earth City have taxes? He would ask the main system when he went back. Probably not 90%. So many law incarnations didn't have taxes, so of course she didn't have any either. Snatching the imprint and still wanting to have taxes, dream on, the main system would probably spit on her face. But what if there was? Asking wouldn't be a loss. If there was, then it was a gain. Nothing was expected. When he arrived at Earth City's City Lord's mansion, he first scanned to see if there was a hidden mistress or something. In the previous Wood City, the previous Law of Wood incarnation had a hidden mistress. With a sweep, although there was no hidden mistress, there were a few maids inside. They weren't maids because they wore different clothes. There were modern clothes, and ancient clothes. These people were in soul form, but their souls were very weak. In the law space, only souls were allowed to stay here. He didn't know if these people were mission enforcers. Ning Shu, in this case, Ning Shu suspected that these were beauties collected by the previous Law of Earth incarnation. However, he was much smarter than the Law of Wood incarnation. At least he was a soul, and he didn't need to eat, drink, and defecate, so he wouldn't be easily discovered. Even if he was discovered, this kind of consensual matter, the organization would either pursue it or ignore it. After all, it was just a matter of a few souls. Of course, the Law of Earth incarnation was much more ruthless than the Law of Wood incarnation. The Law of Wood couldn't bear to let that woman die, so he let her live in the City Lord's mansion in the form of a physical body. Ning Shu opened the door and walked into the City Lord's mansion. Chapter 2797. Although the City Lord's mansion had a barrier, Ning Shu was the embodiment of the Law of Earth, so it was easy for him to enter. These weak souls had obviously been dead for a while. Souls no longer returned to the world of reincarnation, so they would become weaker and weaker due to various reasons. As soon as Ning Shu walked in, several women stared at Ning Shu. In the end, the woman in modern clothes was bolder. She stared at Ning Shu warily and asked, "Who are you?" As the short-haired woman spoke, she also looked at Ning Shu's wrist. "Why are you here? You're not mission enforcers, right? Mission enforcers' souls would not be so weak. That man, he's not dead, is he?" The woman's eyes were filled with hope. Ning Shu nodded. "He's dead. I killed him. Do you want revenge?" She remembered that the woman of the city Lord of Wood had said that she wanted to take revenge. Did you hear that? That bastard is dead. He's dead. When the short-haired woman heard the news, she almost cried with joy. When the other women heard it, they cried with joy, hugging each other and jumping and crying. This was a little different from what Ning Shu had imagined. It meant that this law of earth was not very popular with the women. The previous one had risked her life to avenge the dead law of wood. He's finally dead. We can finally be free, free. The short-haired woman gritted her teeth. She was obviously disgusted with the embodiment of the law of earth. Ning Shu suddenly became a little interested and asked, "What's the matter with you? Souls are not allowed here. I was tricked by him. That guy said that he would be with me forever, that we could cross life and death. At that time, I believed him, but I didn't expect that he would bring me to such a place. I was living well until I met such a person. He just fell in love and then died." This was not the most infuriating thing. The most infuriating thing was that she was not the only one. There were other women in this place as well. There were gentle ladies from noble families, and there were even alluring and talented historical courtesans. If a few women were locked up in a place and were fighting over a man, they would even fight. But as souls, they could no longer wear luxurious clothes, eat delicious food, and even enjoy the pleasures of the flesh. Fighting back and forth was completely useless and meaningless. After a long time, everyone was tired and didn't even know what to do. Sometimes, he felt that even if his soul was scattered, it would still be like this. She was so bored that she was about to explode. Then, she developed a feeling of disgust for that man. However, that swindler was very fond of this kind of game where he hid his mistress in a golden house. Sometimes, if she didn't listen to him, she would be punished. The soul would hurt, and it would dissipate. He would rather die than live such a life without consciousness. However, when it came to death, he would not dare to die. He would just drag it on like this. Now that they heard that the man was finally dead, the ancient women bowed to Ning Shu. "Thank you." Ning Shu did not say anything. She had killed these people purely for the sake of obtaining the Earth Law imprint. At the same time, she also wanted to intimidate these people so that they would not come looking for trouble with her in the future. He would pinch her every now and then. These souls were like pets raised by the Earth Law imprint. When they were bored, they would look at these. Just like how people raised cats and dogs, when they were in a bad mood, they would tease them. As for how they felt, the owner did not care at all. Ning Shu felt that these souls were easy to deal with. She just had to stuff them into the world of reincarnation and jump into the pool of reincarnation to get some soul energy for the world. Now, she did not have any extra pure soul energy. The world of reincarnation, including the few worlds that had grown out, needed to be nurtured by the pool of reincarnation. Ning Shu felt that the pool of reincarnation was like the head of a family. She had to take care of a large family. It was very stressful. Ning Shu opened the black hole and said to the souls, "Go in." Seeing the black hole, the women wanted to go in, but they were very worried. "This is my territory in the future. I don't want to see others in my territory. As for the world behind this black hole, it is the world that you should stay in." The women had no choice but to walk into the black hole one after another. In the past, they were raised in captivity and would sing songs for the man when they had nothing to do. But the man was dead. These people were at a loss and did not know what to do. They hated him, but they also relied on him. Well. The short-haired woman looked at Ning Shu and stopped talking. Ning Shu looked at her. She was wearing an L-shaped suit for women who worked in the company, looking capable and neat. Ning Shu felt that she should be a woman with a high position in a modern company. She could be regarded as a strong woman. "What's the matter?" I want to be like you. Is that okay?" He Qing vaguely felt that the man was actually a soul like her, but she did not know why his soul was so strong. She had no power to fight back in his hands, and for so many years, she only had so much space to move around. As for what the world outside the wall was like, He-Ching had no idea. She was played by a man like this, and her soul was still controlled after she died. As a modern atheist, she certainly did not believe that there was such a thing as a soul. But the man asked her again and again if she was willing to be with him after she died. She only thought that he was being romantic and nodded helplessly. Her answer was like adding a chain to her body. After an accident and death, she came here. She couldn't get out. She was trapped in this small space. She made a fuss, but it did not work, and the man became different. Ning Shu was surprised. You want to become like me? Do you want to become a task enforcer? He-Ching asked carefully, can't I? That man was very tall. If he was alive, he would have been in the mood to be romantic, but after he died and came to this place, he basically treated her like a dog. She could not beat him, nor could she escape. That kind of helplessness and despair made He-Ching sullen. Now that the man was dead, He-Ching was relieved, but she also felt that it was a pity that she could not kill the man with her own hands. She wanted to break the man's spine and his arrogant and disdainful eyes. Ning Shu only said, let's go in first. Okay. He-Ching walked into the black hole. Ning Shu held the black bone umbrella and entered the black hole. The place to enter the world of samsara was next to the pool of reincarnation. The flowers next to the pool of reincarnation and the gorgeous reflection in the pool attracted souls to jump in. There was also a golden skeleton squatting next to the pool. This kind of scene was a bit creepy. Madam. Li Si saw Ning Shu and hurried over, saying, it's probably born again /BK. Chapter 2798. Oh, so fast. Why was another calamity beast born so soon? It shouldn't be so fast. Li Si said, recently, there have been a lot of souls jumping into the pool of life, and the flowers next to it are very fragrant. The souls all jumped in. Ning Shu frowned. Why did this happen to the pool of life? Could it be that the world of reincarnation lacked soul power, so the pool of life had no choice but to use this method to lure more souls to jump in? When she smelled the fragrance of the flowers, her heart was full of happiness. She could get happiness by jumping in. When the girls saw that a skeleton could talk to Ning Shu, they couldn't help but show a frightened expression. It was really a skeleton that could talk. It was quite shocking. These girls all came from the normal world. When they saw such a strange thing, it was already very restrained for them to not scream. Ning Shu checked the world of reincarnation. As expected, a small bubble world was born. The pool of life couldn't supply it and needed more soul power. How did soul power come? Of course, it came from the soul body. You just watch carefully. I'll take care of the rest. Thinking of the dirty and smelly pollutants that were about to be born, Ning Shu felt as if he smelled the stench. Okay. Li Si nodded. Ning Shu turned to the girls and said, jump in. You'll forget the past and be able to reincarnate and start a new life. Really? Is that really okay? Ning Shu pointed at the souls that jumped into the pool of life. There were all kinds of souls, human, animal, and even insect souls. Of course. But Ning Shu didn't say in detail that part of the soul power would be extracted. It was up to them whether to jump or not. The pool of life wouldn't work for free. Moreover, the toxins removed would give birth to calamity beasts. The women hesitated for a moment, then bit their lips and hardened their hearts to jump down. Soon, their figures disappeared. They all jumped in, except for He-Ching. He-Ching stood a little far from the pool of life. She didn't plan to jump in. I don't want to jump. I don't want an afterlife. Can you tell me what my afterlife is? Ning Shu. We'll make the decision. How would I know? This would depend on the strength of one's soul after the reincarnation pool took away one's soul. After a portion of this woman's soul was sucked away by the pool of reincarnation, the chances of her becoming a human were very low. Even if he became a human, he would probably live a life of poverty. This was because if one wanted to become a descendant of a good family, one had to have a strong soul and a bit of luck. Only then would one be able to endure the fate of enjoying wealth from a young age. In short, it was very fair. Ning Shu's words made He Qin even more reluctant to jump. What was the point of having an unguaranteed next life? What if he wasn't an intelligent creature in the future and his life was no longer in his own hands? He had had enough of the feeling of helplessness during his imprisonment. Ning Shu couldn't help but cover his nose and asked, "Do you smell a stench?" "Damn it, the pool of rebirth is giving off such a foul stench. It couldn't have been a mistake, right?" He Qin sniffed. "I smell it." Ning Shu retreated at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he was far away. He Qin turned his head and found that he was no longer beside him. He looked again and found that he was far away. He couldn't help but run over to Ning Shu. Ning Shu tossed 2 merit grains to Li Si. "You watch. I'll be back soon." Li Si caught the merit grains and threw them into his mouth. He chewed like a broad bean. "We'll talk about your business later." Ning Shu disappeared in a flash. He Qin looked at him with envy and disappointment. Ning Shu returned to the system space and opened the chat system. He found His Excellency and asked to borrow his bone. When he saw His Excellency's profile picture, which was a black flower, he thought of Greed's words. His poop was in the shape of a human. Poop in this shape, how uncomfortable would it be to poop? Wouldn't it tear? Ning Shu couldn't control his imagination. His Excellency was probably annoyed. He gave his subordinate the account of the leader of the Bone Army and asked her to contact these people directly and not disturb him. He probably wanted to save time to plant flowers. Ning Shu found the Bone Boss using this account, but his friend request was rejected twice. These bones were quite proud. He didn't expect the Bone Army to have a chat system. How big was this chat system? Bones, Army, Task Enforcers, so many people contacted each other, but this chat system didn't lag. It was awesome. Ning Shu wrote, "I'm a beauty," in the comment of the request. What made people dumbfounded was that this time it was accepted. The Bone Boss under His Excellency was not serious. Could these bones really be saved? His Excellency pretended to be a gentleman every day. In the end, the people around him didn't help at all and exposed him. Ning Shu directly stated his purpose. He requested to borrow a few skeletons. When the matter in the world of reincarnation was settled, he would return it. He didn't know if it was because of the beauty, but the other side agreed readily. They asked Ning Shu to borrow a few. Borrowing a few more was fine. Ning Shu, she couldn't afford to lend a few more. Ning Shu said that he wanted 4. It was still 4. They had worked together before and were familiar with each other. They were also familiar with the situation in this world. The other side tried their best to promote it. They said that the disaster beast this time might be very big. They needed a few more bones, just in case. Ning Shu, why were they so enthusiastic? They insisted on stuffing people here. Could it be that it was for the reward of a few merit grains? What Ning Shu didn't know was that Ning Shu, this violent beauty, was a rich and powerful person in bones. For the beauty, for the merit grains, he had to come no matter what. It was so easy. It was great to go on a business trip. Ning Shu thought for a while and added 2 more skeletons. After all, she was a newbie. It was better to be prepared. It was just a matter of a dozen more merit grains. Compared to the world of reincarnation, these merit grains were nothing. She couldn't lose the big picture for the small. Besides, Ning Shu also wanted to learn the weaknesses and attack methods of the disaster beast from these experienced skeletons. These were all valuable experiences for Li Si to learn. After cultivating Li Si, she would hire one less skeleton. The merit grains she saved would be given to Li Si. After all, Li Si was her family. She had to cultivate her own people. It wasn't good to always export from other people. Soon, 6 skeletons were sent over. They were sent to her system space. The system space wasn't big at first. With 6 more skeletons, it was especially crowded. Ah, are we in the beauty's room? Ah, the beauty's room smells so good. Ah, the beauty keeps fish and flowers. Ah, Ning Shu couldn't help but dig her ears. There were countless ducks quacking in her ears. /BK Chapter 2799. Recently, Ning Shu was a little allergic to long-winded people. He did not speak, opened the black hole, and walked in. The 6 skeletons followed him in. When they arrived at the rebirth pool, the stench seemed to have dissipated. Slowly, the fragrance of fresh flowers filled the air. It was as if the stench from before was just an illusion. Li Si was a little nervous when he saw so many skeletons. Some of the skeletons who were familiar with Li Si greeted him. To be honest, these skeletons looked almost the same, except for their height. Ning Shu really did not recognize them. Ning Shu said, "I'll leave this matter to you." "Oh right, I'll have to trouble you to teach him some things." Ning Shu gave each of them a merit grain as a tuition fee. These skeletons laughed, "Okay, beauty, don't worry. Ah, it's our honor to serve a beauty. Ah, there's a beauty here." The skeleton saw He Qing and immediately greeted her. He Qing was so scared by these skeletons that her soul trembled. She couldn't find a place to hide, so she quickly ran behind Ning Shu and hid behind her. Ah, this beauty is so shy. Ning Shu let these skeletons guard her. Then, he opened the black bone umbrella and planned to leave. He Qing followed behind Ning Shu. Ning Shu stopped, and He Qing also stopped. Facing Ning Shu, she felt a little uncomfortable. She probably realized that this woman who killed that man was much stronger than that man. "Please accept it, I beg you." He Qing said to Ning Shu with a determined face, "I don't want to go to the afterlife." "Then you can choose not to jump into the rebirth pool and live in this world." Not all the souls in the world of reincarnation had gone to the afterlife. There were also souls that lived in this world. Moreover, some special plants and fruits grew in the world of reincarnation, which could let these souls have a taste. Moreover, they contained some subtle soul power. They were very precious and rare. Ning Shu was not interested in these things. If she wanted to eat, she would go to the Lost City to eat. But for ordinary souls, this kind of thing was something that could only be found by chance. Every day, many souls searched for these things. He Qing looked around and saw a dark and gloomy world. There were souls wandering around, and different souls were squeezed together. He Qing knew very well that this was not the life she wanted. She wanted to be like this woman, to be as strong as she was, to be able to see the bright and beautiful world. To He Qing, there was no difference in coming from a small place to this gloomy world. But she didn't want to be reborn. If she was reborn, she would destroy all her experiences and memories. If she was reborn, she wouldn't be herself anymore. He didn't even know what kind of living being he would give birth to in the future. The woman in front of her was her only hope. Ning Shu looked at her thin soul, shook his head and said, "You can't do it now." "Why?" "My soul won't do. At least let it be nurtured in this world." "My soul isn't strong enough." He Qing immediately asked, "If my soul is strong enough, will I be qualified?" Ning Shu nodded. "I will definitely pass. I definitely will." Ning Shu didn't bring her to 2333 because this person's soul was too weak. Even if it was tested, she would still fail. There was no need to go through the trouble. If her obsession was deep enough, she might even become a skeleton. But this woman didn't seem to like the gloomy world of reincarnation. Ning Shu left the Nine Palace Mountain. Looking at the world that was stuck together like a bubble, he felt a bit depressed. Don't let it grow any longer. She didn't have any extra soul force to feed the world. If she gave the pool of rebirth too much pressure, it might collapse. Then everyone would die together. If the main system could purify soul fluid and soul stones, she could still use her soul force to feed it. She had already used up all the stored soul force, and her soul hadn't returned to its previous strength. Ning Shu tried to calm himself down. There was nothing he couldn't solve, he could take it slow. Even the world would save itself and not destroy itself. Ning Shu returned to the system space. The chat system was ringing. Ning Shu felt that it was time to do missions. He didn't have any extra soul force now. He could only get it by doing missions. The soul force he got from missions could also be used to feed the world of reincarnation. Although it wasn't a lot, it was still a little bit. Sitting on the sofa, he opened the chat system. It was from Senior Uncle. Senior Uncle, why didn't you take the secret manual? You don't even dare to do such a thing. You're so petty. Senior Uncle, do you really think you can cut ties with the organization if you don't take the secret manual? I told you not to hang out with greedy wolves. Senior Uncle, at this time, you want to cut ties with the organization. If it weren't for the organization, you would have directly gone to reincarnation. With your current soul strength, you can only reincarnate as a beast. Senior Uncle, every one of you is lazy and stupid. I can't even bring you along. You can't be supported by mud. He couldn't support the wall. Ning Shu didn't say a word from beginning to end. Senior Uncle blocked her after he finished speaking. Ning Shu's heart was as still as water. I want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. Humph, who isn't a little princess? Ning Shu turned off the chat system and prepared to comprehend the space law. As for Senior Uncle's words, Ning Shu didn't feel anything. Between the organization and the mission takers, there was a relationship of mutual need. There was no gift. As for reincarnation and strength, it was the reward for doing this job. Senior Uncle was right about one thing. She didn't accept it because she wanted to be less under the organization's control in the future. Apart from the obligations and responsibilities, Ning Shu didn't want to be under the organization's control too much. When the time came, he wouldn't have to be controlled so much. Before going to the space law, Ning Shu took out a small notebook. He wrote down everything he had to do, expand his sea of consciousness, and stimulate the spiritual ball. This kind of thing needed to be comprehended slowly. What he comprehended by himself would always leave a deep impression on him. When the conditions were right, success was the best way. Ning Shu shook the black bone umbrella, but there seemed to be a little bit of ash on it. She couldn't shake it off. After arriving at the space city, Ning Shu comprehended the space law. He wasn't in a hurry. He would comprehend as much as he could. Ning Shu felt that he had put too much pressure on himself before. His current situation was clearly much better than when he was stumbling around in the past. However, he was a lot more anxious. He couldn't lose the big picture for the small. What was the purpose of immortality? It was to enjoy more beauty and freedom. However, his current state was really not good. He was neither rich nor poor. The people below him had much better lives, but they were even more anxious and worked hard to rise up. Relax, relax. As Ning Shu was comprehending and constructing the space channel, he thought to himself that the sea of consciousness that carried the spiritual ball was a container. /BK Chapter 2800. The container was space. Expanding the sea of consciousness, did she need to use the law of space? Of course, this was just Ning Shu's guess. She didn't know whether it was true or not. The spiritual ball was floating above the sea of consciousness. How to expand the sea of consciousness? Just like digging a hole, she had to make the hole bigger and deeper. This way, the amount of water she could store would increase by a lot. That was to expand the space around the sea of consciousness. Ning Shu entered the sea of consciousness and looked at the sea of consciousness. She wanted to use the method of building a space tunnel to expand the space. Like sewing cloth, she expanded the sea of consciousness. Ning Shu didn't know if this method would work, but she could try it. Even if it failed, it didn't matter. Ning Shu focused on expanding the sea of consciousness, expanding the edges of the sea of consciousness and extending it to the surroundings. In fact, a person's sea of consciousness was quite mysterious. Other than the limited size, it was surrounded by darkness. It was like the universe, dark and without an end. After exhausting all her spiritual power, Ning Shu stopped. However, Ning Shu's sea of laws expanded. Although it was just a little, Ning Shu saw hope. The law of space was really amazing. The law of space and the law of time were known as the two high-level laws. At least in places where living beings lived, they would leave these two. After learning the law of space and familiarizing herself with it, she would study the law of time. Ning Shu now focused all her energy on expanding the sea of consciousness. She wanted to expand the container as much as possible. This way, she could hold a lot of spiritual power. Although the progress was slow, Ning Shu became more and more familiar with it. She was very excited and motivated. She said that she relied on enlightenment, but she relied purely on artificial force to expand the sea of consciousness. It didn't matter, as long as it was solid, the effect would be the same. No matter what method, the final result would be the same. This was the first time she felt so comfortable and carefree comprehending the law of space. She was probably rejecting the law in her heart, and the law of nature was rejecting her. 2333, you can come back to do the mission. Don't waste time. 2333 interrupted Ning Shu, who was building the wall. Now, Ning Shu was like building the Great Wall of China. Ning Shu was a little reluctant to leave. She was working hard. Ning Shu arrived at the system space. As he was constructing the space tunnel, he listened to 2333. 2333 sounded a little annoyed. Now, we can only rely on quests to earn soul energy. We've pissed them off so much that they won't even purify our soul fluid anymore. Ning Shu, it's mine, not ours. 2333, I can get some too. I don't know when I can purify it. Ning Shu couldn't help but roll his eyes. Stop complaining. What's done is done. What's the use of regretting it? Besides, I obtained a law imprint. Water, earth, and wood, the three of them coexist. Wood strengthens earth, earth blocks water, and water nourishes wood. If something were to happen to the law of water, the law of earth would definitely be able to handle it. Wasn't there a saying that goes, counter soldiers with arms, water with earth we're? In short, the gains and losses were balanced. It couldn't be considered a loss, but it couldn't be considered a gain either. After all, the loss of soul power and the purification of soul stones were gone. Ning Shu thought about how 2333 was an old man. He asked, my ultimate martial art is shrinking. Do you think there might be a problem? NBM. How should he answer without making it seem like he wasn't retarded and knowledgeable? It's probably a good thing that you've lost weight. Ning Shu, I think so too. 2333, was it really good to lie to yourself like this? Have you asked anyone else? Yes, I have. They didn't know the specific reason. 2333 suddenly felt a little comforted. After all, so many people knew. It was normal that he didn't know. Ning Shu suddenly asked 2333, by the way, did you have a world before? Yes, I had a universe in my body like Tai Shu. But mine was destroyed by Tai Shu. 2333 said in a bored tone. Ning Shu, fuck, there was too much information. He couldn't digest it. What does it mean to have a universe in your body? Ning Shu immediately asked. He felt like he knew something incredible. 2333, did I say anything? Ning Shu, yes, you just said it. I heard it. 2333, the universe in the body, you wouldn't understand even if I told you. To put it simply, it's using your body as a carrier to form a world. There are big and small worlds, and even universes, infinite universes. He, sometimes you guys pick up garbage. Maybe it's in Tai Shu's body. Ning Shu, isn't it in the plane? Yes, there's no conflict between protecting your own world and the plane born in the sea of law at the same time. Ning Shu scratched his head, feeling a little bald. Is your universe destroyed? Ning Shu asked. It's destroyed. Now there's only an empty shell left. 2333's tone was light. There was no gnashing of teeth, no pain or helplessness. Anyway, if I can't live, Tai Shu can't live either. Ning Shu, do you want to die together? Who cares what grudges you have, as long as you don't implicate her? It doesn't matter even if you beat her to death. Ning Shu stretched her back lazily. A person who used to be so awesome had now become her system. She must be feeling so aggrieved and gnashing her teeth. In the past, Ning Shu felt that 2333 was a very changeable person. When she was happy, she would care about her life and death. Out of humanitarianism, she would remind her. When she was unhappy, she would have a different face. She didn't talk much and never interfered when doing missions. Basically, she would only announce the completion of a mission at the end. She was really a playful retard. It would be strange if she didn't have resentment when she was used to being a cleaner. Ning Shu hammered the ground. She would rather have an ordinary system. They would hold each other hostage and work together to become the best partner. But there were good and bad things. If it wasn't for 2333, she might have been obliterated at that time. Anyway, she was used to a free-range life. There were benefits to not interfering. If it had been a normal system, the two of them would have stumbled and their growth would have been slow. Her current model was that one person was growing, and the other person's foundation was still there. She would be able to return to the peak in a few days. There were gains and losses. Ning Shu didn't complain. She even felt that it was quite good. As for 2333, sooner or later the two of them would, this kind of peaceful model would be broken sooner or later. Before it was broken, Ning Shu had to make sure that she had enough chips to survive. Ning Shu was quite curious about the relationship between Tai Shu and 2333. 2333 obviously didn't want to talk about the past. She asked, "Are you doing system missions?" Ning Shu, could she say that she was curious? She wanted to gossip. Why did Tai Shu make 2333 like this? Did they hate each other because of love or because of benefits? How did the universe form in the body? Oh, fuck, she was so curious. Chapter 2801. Ning Shu's heart was burning with curiosity. He wanted to know what was going on with the world in his body. But 2333 obviously didn't want to talk. Old demon, you're responsible for putting out the fire you started. 2333, are you going to do the system's mission? Ning Shu rolled his eyes. No. Her gossipy heart was aroused. She didn't want to talk about it. If she didn't want to talk about it, she shouldn't have started it. Ning Shu felt that he hadn't done a mission for a long time. His soul was weak now. The world of reincarnation needed soul power. Only by doing missions could he get soul power. Ning Shu opened the exchange store and spent some merit points to exchange for fasting pills and medicine. These things could ensure his survival in extreme situations. Even if he didn't need them in the end, it was better to be prepared. This had become a habit. After exchanging, Ning Shu said, "I can do missions now." 2333, System missions. Ning Shu shook his head. "I haven't done missions in a while. Let's do a simple one to warm up." During this time, if he wasn't picking up trash, he was busy with other things. System missions should be delayed. 2333 directly sent Ning Shu away. Ning Shu quickly merged into a body. Suddenly, he felt his heart pounding. It was like a dream. He was chased by something. Then, he stepped on air and woke up with a shake. When he woke up, he was covered in cold sweat. He opened his eyes and saw that there seemed to be some black smoke surging on the ceiling. There was a pair of red eyes. His heart was beating wildly uncontrollably. Dong dong dong, it was like it was going to explode. Ning Shu rubbed his eyes. Was there really a ghost or an illusion? But after rubbing his eyes, there was nothing. It was like an illusion. His whole body was sticky and uncomfortable. His mouth was dry and his heart was beating wildly. It was like high blood pressure. There was only one feeling. He was going to die. Ning Shu turned over and began to receive the plot. The client was called Chen Min. She was a company employee. But recently, she seemed to be entangled by something. She had inexplicable hallucinations. Her body was either hurting here or there. Sometimes, when she was doing well at work, her body would suddenly hurt. Moreover, it would hurt at certain times, places. It was so painful that his entire body trembled. It was as if someone was stabbing his body with a needle. It was extremely painful. But when he went to the hospital for a checkup, there was nothing serious. At most, he was in a subhealthy state. This kind of physical pain made the life of the client very difficult. Moreover, the body would hurt from time to time. It was completely sudden. After a while, the pain would disappear. The next time he felt pain, it might be tomorrow or a few days later. The client was tormented by pain. It was probably too painful, causing the client's mental state to deteriorate, resulting in hallucinations. He kept feeling that something was following him. Sometimes, when she was with her boyfriend, she would suddenly see her boyfriend's face become incomparably ferocious, opening his bloody mouth and pouncing on her. The client then gave him a big slap and screamed at the same time. The client's boyfriend was also baffled. How did his girlfriend become like this? In short, Chen Min's life was a mess. She was about to lose both her relationship and her job. She couldn't eat or sleep well. Clearly, she could see things, but others couldn't. In other people's eyes, she was like a lunatic. Boyfriend, he said that she was crazy and had mental problems. He even took the client to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said that the client was under too much psychological pressure. This kind of pressure had nowhere to vent, so it caused this situation. The boyfriend, Ding Xuehai, was a little confused. Where did his girlfriend get so much pressure from? Their relationship was considered good, and Chen Min's job was not bad. She wasn't considered a high-paid person, but to support herself, eat a big meal from time to time, and then buy some cosmetics. Every month, she could still save a little money. Although it wasn't much, it wasn't a situation where she couldn't even eat and slept on the streets. Even a homeless person who slept on the streets wouldn't be so scared. Her face was green, her lips were pale, and she looked like a ghost. Chen Min said that there was a ghost following her, and her body was in pain. Ding Xuehai took her to the hospital for a checkup. The checkup showed that there was no problem, but Ding Xuehai stayed by the client's side for several nights to comfort her about the ghost. Sometimes, the client would suddenly scream and point to a place, saying that there was a ghost. But Ding Xuehai looked in the direction his girlfriend pointed, and didn't see any ghost at all. But his girlfriend was so scared that she was in a trance. If it was acting, her acting skills were too good. Ding Xuehai thought that his girlfriend was probably crazy. He heard that crazy people would have hallucinations and auditory hallucinations. Ding Xuehai wanted to take Chen Min to see a psychiatrist, but Chen Min refused. She insisted that there was something evil around her, and sharply criticized Ding Xuehai for not believing her. Ding Xuehai was also mentally exhausted. Who would believe such a ridiculous thing? After a long time, the relationship between the two faded, and naturally, they broke up. In the big city, there wasn't even a single person who supported her. The client tried hard to not be so crazy, but the occasional pain in her body made her frequently make mistakes in her work. Her body couldn't take it anymore. Now that she couldn't even keep her job, her boss showed serious dissatisfaction. Chen Min was helpless. No one believed her, and she couldn't find a solution. If she said that she was haunted by ghosts, no one would believe her. The amulet she found in the temple was also useless. She didn't know what to do. At this time, her ex-boyfriend, Ding Xuehai, was with a friend. Although they weren't really good friends, they could have a meal together. They were just acquaintances, and they were from the same school. Chen Min's heart was filled with a deep sense of despair. She battled with the hallucinations and physical pain every day. Her body was getting thinner and thinner. She checked her body and didn't have any serious illness, but the pain from time to time was torturous. The hallucinations were getting worse, and she could see scary ghosts at any time. There were all kinds of ghosts. The client wanted to get rid of this situation. If it continued, she really couldn't take it. It was inexplicable. Why did she encounter such a thing? After receiving the plot, Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw a 7- or 8-year-old boy sitting in a corner with his hands hugging his calves. His face was pale. Ning Shu was speechless. The moment he opened his eyes, it was so stimulating that his heart couldn't help but race. If it continued like this, his heart would definitely not be able to take it, and he would die of heart failure. His little heart would definitely not be able to take such a shock. Moreover, even if the matter was resolved, this body would probably be tortured. Did the client open her third eye or something? She suddenly saw these inexplicable things. Chapter 2802. In the blink of an eye, the child in the corner suddenly disappeared, as if it was an illusion. Oh my God, this is really interesting. Ning Shu sat up. Her whole body was soft and she had no strength at all. It was especially uncomfortable. She could guarantee that if she got up to pour water or go to the toilet, another illusion would appear. Hiss. Ning Shu took a deep breath because she felt something piercing into her body. It was so painful that her whole body trembled. That feeling was sharp and cold as it pierced into her body. Ning Shu felt that someone was stabbing a doll. At this moment, someone was holding a doll and a thick needle and stabbing the doll. However, this was a normal thing. At least, it was normal for the client for more than 20 years. Then, something like this happened recently. The tip of the needle pierced into her body like a knife. There was no wound, no bleeding, but the pain was heart-wrenching. Could it be that the client had been bewitched or some kind of evil spell? Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. Ning Shu wiped the cold sweat off her forehead. She bit her finger and drew a talisman on her body. No matter what the reason was, she had to block her sense of pain first. It was too painful to continue like this. The talisman disappeared into her body and dissipated the pain in her body. Ning Shu got up and was about to pour some water to drink when she opened the fridge. She saw a dead person's head in the fridge, staring at her with wide eyes and pale skin. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent as she shook her head. When she looked over again, it was just a watermelon. Ning Shu was speechless. How was she going to eat the watermelon? Was she going to cut open the person's brain and dig out the brain with a spoon? Ning Shu smiled. Why not eat it? Eating a bite of iced watermelon was too satisfying. Ning Shu reached out and took the watermelon out of the fridge. In the end, the watermelon turned into a head in her hand. Her hand trembled. Ning Shu wanted to throw the watermelon out, but her heart ached. If she fell, she wouldn't be able to eat it. Besides, she was very hungry now. Ning Shu put the watermelon on the coffee table, picked up the fruit knife, and reached out to touch the hair on her head. It was bone-chilling cold. Don't move. Wait for me to cut open your brain and eat you. Ning Shu held the knife and directly chopped the head in half. Then, a rotten smell assaulted his face. The stench made him vomit. Ning Shu picked up the spoon with an unpleasant expression. She held the head and scooped up the brain juice to eat. Yeah, I'm used to it being sweet and cold. It's so comfortable. What's wrong with the head? I'll eat it if I can. Ning Shu was full and put down the bowl. It was a watermelon, not a smelly head. If the client or a normal person saw this thing, they would definitely scream in fear. Although Ning Shu wasn't afraid in his heart, his body went soft again, and his heart was pounding. Courage could not be trained. If the heart continued to be stimulated like this, it would definitely be destroyed. Ning Shu burped as he sat cross-legged on the sofa and began to absorb the fiery sun's energy. The fiery sun's energy was the yang energy of heaven and earth. With yang energy in the body, yin energy would not be able to invade. Especially since a girl's body was yin energy, it was easier to attract unclean things. What did the client do to attract it? She didn't go to any special places. She also didn't travel to other countries. Occasionally, she would watch movies and eat with her boyfriend. These were all places with many people. Something like this happened out of the blue. Ning Shu used his peerless martial arts to cultivate for a while. He was a little surprised that there was so little fiery sun's energy. Could it be that this house was full of yin energy and not enough yang energy? Ning Shu planned to leave the room and cultivate outside. The neighborhood park or something. But when Ning Shu went downstairs, he encountered a ghost wall. She went downstairs again and again, but it was always on the 5th floor. The surroundings were silent, only the sound of her footsteps could be heard. She kept going downstairs until she was on the 5th floor. Ning Shu moved his neck. This was really interesting. She had caught ghosts before, and these methods were used on her. Ning Shu crossed her fingers to warm up. She formed a seal with both hands and drew out the last bit of fiery sun's energy from her body. The talisman directly hit the words 5F. The surrounding scene became blurry, and Ning Shu was actually standing in front of his house. He didn't move, and when he looked up, he could see the words 5F. The client must have touched something. She must have taken something that she shouldn't have and was entangled. Ning Shu ran downstairs. It was clearly the dog days of summer, but Ning Shu stood under the scorching sun, her body emitting cold air. And the sun was glaring. Under the sun, she could barely open her eyes. These were all symptoms of the body lacking yang energy. To others, the sun was very hot, but to Ning Shu, it was just right. It was very warm. Ning Shu sat on the tiles in the garden, cross-legged, and began to absorb the fiery sun's energy. He hoped to use the fiery sun's energy to expel the yin energy in his body. With the fiery sun's energy entering his body, Ning Shu felt a little warmer. White smoke rose from the top of his head. This body, even if it wasn't scary, it would still cause sudden death. The ups and downs of his emotions were too much for his body to bear. And the sudden shock caused his heart and all the organs in his body to start to fail. On such a hot day, Ning Shu's body didn't sweat. Even if he sweated, it was cold sweat. It had nothing to do with normal perspiration. Could it be that the client offended someone and wanted to use this method to kill her? It was fine if the client had an illusion, but why did she have an illusion too? This was clearly a normal world. As Ning Shu cultivated, he pondered in his heart. Chen Min is over there. What is she doing sitting in the garden? 3 people, 1 man and 2 women, saw Ning Shu and walked over with big and small bags. One of them was the client's boyfriend, and the other was Huang Shanshan, who had broken up with the client. The other was Zhao Feng, a colleague of the company. They usually ate together at the company and could be considered friends. What are you doing sitting here? Ding Xuehai asked Ning Shu. He saw Ning Shu wearing a thick sweater. Wasn't it hot to wear this in the dog days? Ning Shu came down from the flower bed and looked at Ding Xuehai. Ding Xuehai was wearing a shirt. He was a long-legged oppa with good looks. And he was a local. In this big city, being a local meant that he had a house. Ding Xuehai was a down-to-earth and hard-working man. His family was also well off. Chen Min was a foreigner. She came here to study. After graduating from university, she stayed in this city to work. Ning Shu said, "The noodles are too cold." Ding Xuehai, in this kind of weather, his life was given by the air conditioner. Ning Shu glanced at Huang Shanshan and asked, "Why are you two together?" After the client broke up with Ding Xuehai, she got together with Huang Shanshan/BK. Chapter 2803. Zhao Feng said, "I met the 2 of them at the entrance of the neighborhood." Huang Shanshan immediately said, "I called Ding Xuehai. I heard that you were sick, so I came to see you." Ning Shu nodded. Huang Shanshan actually had Ding Xuehai's phone number. He brought her boyfriend to see his girlfriend. Ning Shu brought the 3 of them to the 5th floor and opened the door. Ding Xuehai put down the bag and opened the curtains. It was dark when he came in. Why did he close the curtains in broad daylight? During the day, you have to open the curtains and open the windows for ventilation. Ding Xuehai said to Ning Shu. He closed the curtains and saw the watermelon rind on the coffee table and the watermelon seeds on the ground. He couldn't help but sigh and put the half-eaten watermelon into the fridge. Ning Shu asked Zhao Feng and Huang Shanshan to sit down. "Thank you for coming to see me. I'm actually fine. I'm cold and a little sore. Other than that, I'm fine." Ding Xuehai opened the fridge and asked, "Do you want to go to the hospital?" Huang Shanshan agreed, "Yes, you should go to the hospital if you're sick. Did you catch a cold or something?" Ning Shu waved his hand. "I'm fine. I'm almost recovered. Do you want to stay for lunch?" Zhao Feng shook her head and said no. She came out during lunch and had to go back to the company later. Zhao Feng wanted Ning Shu to get better quickly. She had a lot of work to do. Ning Shu nodded and asked Zhao Feng to take the fruit back. He let Zhao Feng eat it and give it to his colleagues. Zhao Feng said with a straight face, "I bought it for you. If you ask me to take it back, where am I going to put my face?" Okay. After sending the fruit away, there were only 3 people left in the house. Ding Xuehai rummaged through the fridge, trying to find something to cook. In the end, he could only cook noodles. Ning Shu looked at Huang Shanshan. "You want to stay for lunch?" Huang Shanshan looked at Ding Xuehai and nodded. Okay. Huang Shanshan and the client were from the same school. However, she was the client's senior and was 2 years older. After they got to know each other, they felt like friends. However, they had not reached the level of best friends. Ding Xuehai cooked 3 bowls of noodles, a poached egg for everyone, and sprinkled a few chopped green onions. It looked very appetizing. "This bowl is for you." Ding Xuehai placed a bowl in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't care about which bowl it was. When he picked up the noodles and stirred them again, he found that there was an extra poached egg at the bottom of the bowl. Ning Shu was pleasantly surprised. Naturally, it was also because of his body that made Ning Shu astonished. Ding Xuehai was pretty good at creating romantic surprises. Although it was just a poached egg, it was enough to warm people's hearts. Ning Shu couldn't help but look at Ding Xuehai. Ding Xuehai smiled. "I've prepared a supreme fried egg for you." "Thank you." Ning Shu took a bite. The egg white was fried until it was golden brown, and the taste was quite good. Now he seemed to be a good boyfriend, but in the end, he couldn't stand his girlfriend's neuroticism and left. However, the client was indeed suffering. They had no choice but to separate like this. Seeing this, Huang Shanshan stirred the noodles. There was no fried egg at the bottom of the bowl. Ning Shu ate while looking at Huang Shanshan. Huang Shanshan's appetite wasn't very good. She ate the noodles one by one, and her mind wasn't on eating the noodles. There was a wolf beside Ding Xuehai. When he wasn't paying attention, he took Ding Xuehai away. "Senior sister, doesn't it taste good?" Ning Shu asked. Her appetite was very good now. Her body, which had absorbed the power of the fire sun, was warm. Huang Shanshan saw the two of them staring at her and immediately said, "It's very delicious. I didn't expect Ding Xuehai to know how to cook. You're so lucky to have found such a good boyfriend. You have to cherish him." Ning Shu almost patted his chest. He raised his chin and said arrogantly, "Of course, my taste is definitely good. Of course, that's because Xuehai is good." Huang Shanshan smiled and nodded. "That's true." Ding Xuehai couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. He didn't interrupt. After eating the noodles, Ning Shu and Huang Shanshan sat on the sofa and chatted. In fact, they were a little speechless. There was nothing to talk about when they talked about school. Ning Shu suddenly felt a pain in his stomach. His stomach was turning upside down. Then, the food in his stomach was stuck in his throat. He was about to vomit. Ning Shu was expressionless as he swallowed the vomit. However, his stomach was hurting more and more. There was a hand kneading his stomach over and over again. Ning Shu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. She had only eaten a little. Why did she have to vomit it out? Huang Shanshan noticed Ning Shu's abnormality and asked, "What's wrong with you? You look terrible." Ning Shu shook his head. "I'm fine. I'm just sweating because of the cold." Huang Shanshan frowned. "Are you really not going to the hospital? I'll call Ding Xuehai." She stood up and went to the kitchen to call Ding Xuehai, who was washing the dishes. Ning Shu clutched her stomach. The feeling of vomiting came again. However, Ning Shu stubbornly swallowed it down. "I just ate. I don't want to vomit." Ning Shu cast a spell and slapped the talisman into her stomach. What exactly was causing trouble in her body? With the talisman protecting her body, although it still hurt, she could endure it. She didn't have the urge to vomit anymore. Ning Shu felt that the client's body was like a doll being played with. He could do whatever he wanted to her, but she had to endure this kind of pain. "Stab me, stab me." Ning Shu saw a black shadow flash by the window. In the next second, the black shadow appeared in front of her. The black shadow had a pair of scarlet eyes. Other than that, it was black smoke. Ning Shu and the black smoke stared at each other. The scarlet eyes looked like they could drip blood. It let out a frightening whimper. Ning Shu didn't scream in fright, nor did she do anything extreme. She just looked at this thing quietly. "Where are you feeling unwell?" Ding Xuehai walked over. Ning Shu asked. There was no such black shadow at all. "Yes, where are you feeling unwell? Tell me." Huang Shanshan also asked. Ning Shu's eyes almost became cross-eyed. She ignored the black smoke and said to Ding Shuehai, I'm fine. I probably have some indigestion. I'll be fine after eating some digestive pills. Besides scaring people, this thing didn't have any other effect. It didn't seem to have any lethality. In the blink of an eye, the black smoke disappeared again. It was as if it was just an illusion. If it was the client, she would definitely be scared out of her wits and scream. No one else could see it except her. At this time, the client's behavior was no different from a lunatic. Are you really okay? Do you want to go to the hospital? Ding Shuehai reached out and touched Ning Shu's forehead. He then held her hand. Why are you so cold? It was cold. It was very comfortable to wipe her hand like this in the summer. However, this wasn't normal. Yes, listen to Ding Shuehai. Go to the hospital quickly. A minor illness can't be delayed. If you delay it, it will easily become a serious illness. Huang Shanshan advised Ning Shu. /BK. Chapter 2804. Huang Shanshan and Ding Shuehai both tried to persuade Ning Shu to go to the hospital, but Ning Shu kept saying that she was fine. Even if she went to the hospital, there wouldn't be any problems. It would be a waste of energy and emotions. If they didn't find anything, people would think that she was pretending to be sick. In the plot, Ding Shuehai couldn't stand the crazy client. After a while, the living room was densely packed with ghosts. Some of these ghosts had a physical body, some didn't. They rushed at her and penetrated her body. When these evil things penetrated her body, Ning Shu felt a chill all over her body. She felt like she was being frozen. However, these evil things that penetrated her body didn't have any benefits. She had already started to cultivate peerless martial arts, and she was absorbing the power of the yang fire. Being touched by the yang qi, these ghosts definitely didn't feel good. Although there were a lot of ghosts, Ding Shuehai and Huang Shanshan didn't see them. Ning Shu didn't scream or have any abnormalities. She said to Ding Shuehai, I'm fine. At most, I have a cold. A cold in the dog days is not easy to treat. Anyway, I've already asked for leave from the company. I might as well rest for a few days. Ning Shu said with a normal face. Huang Shanshan shook her head and said, I think you should go to the hospital. Your face is pale and covered in cold sweat. It's obvious that you're not feeling well. Anyway, a trip to the hospital won't take much time. Ding Shuehai nodded and agreed with Huang Shanshan. He reached out and held his girlfriend's hand. It was indeed cold. It's summer. Why are you so cold? It's okay. I'll take some medicine and sleep. Thank you for coming to see me today. Ning Shu said to Ding Shuehai. Anyway, she said with a smile that she was fine. Huang Shanshan looked at Ning Shu with some suspicion. She told Ning Shu not to be stubborn. But the other party didn't listen. She couldn't say anything. Ding Shuehai didn't force her. He said to Ning Shu, I'll go buy you something to eat in the fridge. If you're hungry, eat some. Ning Shu nodded. Ding Shuehai changed his shoes at the entrance and was ready to go out. Huang Shanshan immediately said, I'll go with you. Ding Shuehai shook his head. No need. You stay here and talk to Chen Min. I'll be back soon. When Ning Shu saw this, he said, then the two of you can go together. Huang Shanshan changed her shoes and went out with Ding Shuehai. As soon as the two of them stepped out of the door, Ning Shu followed them out. Ding Shuehai and Huang Shanshan went to the supermarket not far from the residential area. Ding Shuehai carried the basket and chose something. Huang Shanshan held the fruit and asked Ding Shuehai. Ding Shuehai nodded. They were a little far away, so they couldn't really hear what they were saying. But looking at this scene, it was like a couple shopping at the supermarket. Ning Shu felt that Huang Shanshan liked Ding Shuehai. Now that she had made her presence known in front of Ding Shuehai, they got together not long after Chen Min's accident. Ning Shu felt that it was necessary to investigate this Huang Shanshan since they had broken up not long ago. However, Ning Shu didn't see any black smoke on Huang Shanshan's body. He didn't see any problem. At most, she liked the client's boyfriend. When the two of them were paying the bill, Ning Shu went back first. When the two of them came back, Ning Shu was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Ding Shuehai put the vegetables, fruits, and some convenience food in the fridge. He said to Ning Shu, "If you're hungry, make something for yourself. Don't go hungry." Ning Shu nodded and smiled. "Thank you. What are you thanking me for? Get better quickly. Why did you close the curtains again? Don't close them. Let the room have some light." Ding Shuehai opened the curtains as he spoke. The living room became much brighter. "Don't you still have to go to work?" "Go ahead," Ning Shu said to Ding Shuehai. Ding Shuehai gave Ning Shu a few instructions and left. Huang Shanshan also left and said goodbye to Ning Shu. Ning Shu thanked her. Then Ning Shu leaned on the balcony and watched the two of them walk out of the community side by side. Huang Shanshan turned her head and said something to Ding Shuehai. Just by looking at their backs, the two of them were slender and looked like a perfect match. Ning Shu felt as if something pushed her from behind. She turned around but saw nothing. Fortunately, the window was sealed with glass. If there was only a railing, she would have fallen. Falling from the height of the 5th floor, even if she didn't die, she would be seriously injured. Ning Shu felt that she might have been too kind. These inexplicable ghosts actually bullied her in her territory. They bullied her in her territory. She just happened to cultivate some fiery yang power to deal with ghosts like you. If they didn't provoke her, the ghosts they encountered might even send them to the world of reincarnation to be reborn. Now, don't talk about rebirth. Their souls should be scattered. Ning Shu closed the curtains again. The living room looked much darker. Ning Shu formed a seal with both hands. First, she opened her heavenly eye. Once she opened her heavenly eye, she realized how crowded the room was. There were all kinds of monster souls everywhere. There was a cloud of black smoke. There was a tongue hanging upside down on the roof. Then, the long tongue hung in front of her eyes, swaying. So interesting. This kind of soul was no longer just a soul. Their souls had changed and become evil spirits. There were so many people in such a small room. Did they pay the rent and utilities? 1/3 of her monthly salary was spent on rent and utilities. There were so many people in the room. Ning Shu stretched out her hand. A flame lit up at her fingertips. Then, a fire dragon roared out. This fire dragon wasn't big. It was only the size of an arm. It was slender and long. It pounced on these evil spirits. Anyone touched by the fire dragon's body was destroyed by the fire dragon. Seeing how powerful this thing was, the ghosts in the room were frightened. They wanted to leave, but they were quickly destroyed by the fire dragon. Then, the house suddenly became clean, and there was nothing left in it. Ning Shu clapped her hands. Finally, there was nothing left. Every day, she would see a pale ghost face when she opened her eyes. It was eerie and it affected her mood. After resolving this matter, Ning Shu went to cultivate under the sun. He absorbed the power of the fiery sun. The yin energy in his body was too strong. It was easy to attract such things. Ning Shu cultivated all the way until it was dark before she returned home. The moment she opened the door, she felt a cold yin qi surge into her body. He felt like he was frozen. However, this feeling was quickly resolved by the power of the fiery sun in his body. His body felt warm. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn it. Wasn't it just destroyed? Why did it appear again? A small dragon covered in flames wrapped around Ning Shu's arm. Ning Shu walked into the room and turned on the lights. However, the light was very weak. It felt like it would go out at any moment. Ning Shu released the power of the fiery sun. The fire dragon wrapped around his arm immediately rushed out. Chapter 2805. The fire dragon grew even bigger and swam through every room. The wind in the room was very strong, and it felt a bit like a sandstorm. Ning Shu's hair was blown into a mess, and after a while, the wind calmed down, and the fire dragon wrapped around Ning Shu's arm again. What's wrong with it? Why is it like this? I've already killed it, so where did these come from? What's with the feeling of endless killing? What's wrong with you? Is there something in the room that attracts these things? Ning Shu sat on the sofa, closed his eyes, and released his spiritual force to scan every corner of the room, and finally found something under his butt. Ning Shu lay down and reached out to take the thing off the sofa. It was a small cloth bag wrapped in talisman paper. He didn't know what kind of blood was on the talisman paper, but the blood was already dark red and looked very ferocious. Ning Shu opened the talisman paper and opened the cloth bag. He didn't know what was inside the cloth bag, but it was powder. Ning Shu blew the powder on his fingers. This can't be bone ash, right? Otherwise, Ning Shu couldn't think of what it was. In the big city, there was no firewood burning, so this can't be the ashes left behind by firewood burning. Ning Shu wrapped the thing and put it on the coffee table, washed his hands, and looked at this thing while eating an apple. This thing is definitely not the client's thing, and the client should not know that there is such a thing in the place where he lives. Then who put it here, and put it in such a secret place, and also in a very conspicuous place? Who would have thought that it was stuck under the sofa? Is this the reason why these ghosts are wandering around? Ning Shu couldn't figure it out. Of course, one thing is certain, that is, the person who can come to this rented house. The landlord can't be, right? Didn't he eat too much and bring disaster to his house? If the client died in this house, it would not be good for the landlord. He can't even rent the house in the future. Boyfriend? Ding Shuehai shouldn't be, right? What did he do to the client? The client's family background and job were not as good as Ding Shuehai's. They were together purely because of love. They were boyfriend and girlfriend to begin with, not husband and wife. What was the point? If they bought a huge amount of insurance, they wouldn't be able to get it since they weren't relatives or husband and wife. Other than Ding Shuehai, there was also his senior, Huang Shanshan, and his friend from the company, Zhao Feng. The three of them had been here before, but Zhao Feng rarely came. They were working partners. Then it was possible that it was Huang Shanshan. As for the reason, it was Ding Shuehai. Ding Shuehai was not an overbearing CEO. He was rich and overbearing, but he was a local. He had a car, a house, and his parents had jobs. Compared to the average person, he was considered a middle-class person. It was necessary to find Huang Shanshan. Ning Shu kept this thing. On Sunday, when Huang Shanshan was resting, he went directly to her house. When Ding Shuehai had nothing to do, he would come to the house and rummage through Ning Shu's refrigerator. Ning Shu was someone who never mistreated himself. If there was food, of course, he would eat until he was full. Only when he was full would he have the strength to fight. During this period, Huang Shanshan had followed Ding Shuehai several times, and she had come with him. It felt as if they were a couple who came to visit a sick friend. It was always Huang Shanshan who called Ding Shuehai and said that they came to visit their junior. They were all from the same school and they were all in the same city. Of course, they had to take care of each other. Ning Shu, Ding Shuehai did not seem to feel anything. Even if he came with Huang Shanshan, he was magnanimous. Perhaps in his heart, he really treated Huang Shanshan as Chen Min's friend. Ning Shu observed Huang Shanshan. Every time Huang Shanshan came, she would bring some fruits. It seemed that she was really here to visit a friend. When he did not work on Sunday and Huang Shanshan was at home, Ning Shu prepared to visit her. When he was about to reach the door of Huang Shanshan's rented house, Ning Shu called Huang Shanshan and told her that he was at her door. Ning Shu also carried a bag of fruits in his hand. She was here to thank him and to visit. Ning Shu released his spiritual force and invaded Huang Shanshan's house. Huang Shanshan's rented house was not big. It was not as big as the client's house. It had one bedroom and one living room. There were a lot of things in the house and it seemed very crowded. Huang Shanshan was still sleeping. When she received a call from Ning Shu, she quickly got up. Ning Shu noticed that there was a shrine in her bedroom. In front of the shrine, there were many things enshrined, including animals that looked like foxes and cats. Ning Shu frowned. What are these things? Some people like to enshrine things, but to enshrine these things, they have to pay something. Some things rely on incense to cultivate, and incense is very attractive to some things. For things like enshrining, it is easier to invite the gods than to send them away. Huang Shanshan opened the door and saw Ning Shu with a smile on his face. She asked with some surprise, "Why are you here so early?" Ning Shu walked into the room and put the fruit on the table and said, "I'm not sick. You came to see me. I came here to thank you." Ning Shu put on a light makeup and looked very energetic. Her cheeks were pink and she looked very beautiful. Walking into the house, he looked around and said, "Seeing your sister's house is very warm." "Warm or something, it's just a lie. I don't have a good life. I found a boyfriend and I can live in a slightly bigger house." Huang Shanshan shook her head and entered the narrow bathroom to wash up. "What do you mean by finding a good man? The client's rent is paid by herself. Occasionally, when they go on a date or something, she will also pay the bill." Ding Shuihai seems to know that the client has a strong self-esteem in this regard. Sometimes when she wants to pay the bill, Ding Shuihai will not say anything. In fact, the client is a little inferior, so she is not willing to spend more of Ding Shuihai's money. But in Huang Shanshan's eyes, the client seems to be living a good life with a big money. Isn't she still at work? She did something wrong and was scolded like a dog. Under Ning Shu's spiritual force, everything in the room was in her mind. Especially the altar in Huang Shanshan's bedroom, which was facing the bed. There were fruits and incense and paper money. Especially the one that was enshrined, Ning Shu did not recognize what animal it was for a while. Fox Immortal did not look like a fox immortal. Ning Shu memorized the appearance of this animal and prepared to go back and find out what it was. Huang Shanshan came out of the bathroom. She was already bright and beautiful. She had put on makeup and looked very beautiful. "Let's go out for dinner later." Huang Shanshan went into the bedroom to change clothes. She locked the door. After changing clothes, she lit incense and sandalwood for the altar. Huang Shanshan came out with her bag, with a sandalwood fragrance on her body. Chapter 2806. Ning Shu sniffed and asked, "Senior sister, what is that smell on your body? What perfume is it?" "It smells like sandalwood." Huang Shanshan's eyes flashed and said, "That's the smell. The deodorant in the wardrobe smells like this." Ning Shu nodded and the two of them went shopping. Ning Shu also took a fancy to a dress, but the dress was a bit expensive, but he still gritted his teeth and bought it. Huang Shanshan said, "This dress is quite expensive. It costs half of my salary. I like it, but it might not be available the next time I come." Ning Shu said with a smile. Huang Shanshan looked at the dress. She did not like this style. Although it was stylish, it was not fashionable. It made her look like an old lady. She jokingly said, "If you buy this dress, will you ask Ding Shuai for reimbursement?" "No, I bought it myself. Why would I ask for reimbursement? He is your boyfriend. Shouldn't he buy you a dress?" Ning Shu nodded and said under Huang Shanshan's jealous eyes, "You are right." Huang Shanshan seemed to be a little short of money. She took a fancy to a few things, but did not buy them. While eating, she sighed, "Life is really stressful now. In addition to eating and drinking every month, I also have to send money home." Ning Shu deeply felt, "Yes, poor." Huang Shanshan rolled her eyes at Ning Shu, "Don't call yourself poor. Don't you still have Ding Shuai?" Ning Shu ate a mouthful of rice. Huang Shanshan often mentioned Ding Shuai. The phone in her bag vibrated. It was a text message from Ding Shuai, asking what she was doing now and whether she had eaten. He said that he was going on a business trip and might not be back in the next few days. He asked Ning Shu to take good care of herself and come back with a gift. Ning Shu replied, "Okay." But she felt that it was too cold. Ding Shuai had said so much, but she only replied with 2 words. It seemed perfunctory. So she said to be careful and look forward to the gift. Huang Shanshan looked at Ning Shu's text and asked, "Is it Ding Shuai?" Ning Shu nodded and put his phone away. He did not tell Huang Shanshan what he had said or what they had talked about. Huang Shanshan didn't want to ask about their relationship, but she felt uncomfortable. Ning Shu suddenly said to Huang Shanshan, "Do you have any way to make Ding Shuai's heart fall on me?" Huang Shanshan was stunned for a moment. "Doesn't Ding Shuai like you very much and treat you very well? Why do you need a heart?" Ning Shu looked depressed. "You know, our family conditions are very different. We don't even know if we can be together in the end. I heard that there are things on the internet that can make love deeply, the kind that makes couples love each other even more." Huang Shanshan shook her head. "There's no answer to your question. I don't have a boyfriend. How would I know such things?" However, Huang Shanshan seemed to be a little anxious as she said, "This kind of thing is superstition. You must not do it. If Ding Shuai finds out about it, Ding Shuai will be unhappy. If this was in ancient times, it would be similar to witchcraft. Ding Shuai will definitely be angry with you because of this. It's just a relationship. How can it be related to this kind of thing?" If it weren't for the altar in Huang Shanshan's bedroom, people would almost believe Huang Shanshan's words. Ning Shu just made an "oh" sound and didn't say anything. Her expression was indifferent. No one could tell what she was thinking. Huang Shanshan was really afraid that Ning Shu would do this kind of thing. She said anxiously, "You must not do this kind of thing." Ning Shu still made an "oh" sound. Huang Shanshan frowned and changed the topic. "You weren't feeling well some time ago. Are you better now?" Ning Shu nodded. "I'm much better, but sometimes I still feel uncomfortable. It's not a pain here or there. I don't know what's wrong with my body. There's nothing wrong with it." After lunch, the two separated. Huang Shanshan returned to her home. Ning Shu followed her and stood in front of her door. He used his spiritual force to look at the situation in the room. Huang Shanshan walked into the bedroom barefoot. She sat on the ground and kowtowed to the altar. Then she said, "Li Xian, why haven't they broken up yet?" "Why? I hope they break up soon." "Break up soon?" Then Huang Shanshan took out her phone and found the shop owner. She said, "I've invited Li Xian for so long. Why hasn't it worked yet?" The shop owner replied, "It works if you're sincere. You have to believe in the great immortal with your heart. Otherwise, it won't work." Huang Shanshan couldn't wait any longer. "But they don't show any signs of breaking up. They're still sweet. Also, the thing you gave me last time. It's said that it can make the other party's mood bad and cause quarrels between couples. But they're still so harmonious. Ding Xuehai was still so good to Chen Min, this will take time. Also, you've questioned the great immortal this time. It will make the great immortal very unhappy. It works if you're sincere. The shop owner's words were unfathomable. Huang Shanshan put down her phone and bowed to the altar. Great immortal, please don't blame me. I spoke rashly. I'll pay attention next time. Wisps of white smoke that couldn't be seen by the naked eye came out of Huang Shanshan's head. The white smoke floated towards the altar and was absorbed. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. It was really Huang Shanshan's doing. Ning Shu raised his hand and knocked on the door. Huang Shanshan was shocked. She quickly got up and locked the bedroom door. When she opened the door and saw Ning Shu, she asked, "What's wrong?" "Actually, I have something to ask you. I don't have any other friends here, so I can only look for Senior," Ning Shu said with a sigh. "Senior, can you give me a glass of water?" Ning Shu asked. Huang Shanshan had no choice but to pour water for Ning Shu. Actually, she didn't like this junior at all. But she had no choice. Even if she was unhappy, she still had to put on a harmonious appearance. Ning Shu directly reached into the sofa and stuck something under the sofa. Then, he smiled and waited for Huang Shanshan's water. "Here. Thank you." Huang Shanshan asked, "What is it?" Ning Shu didn't drink the water and put it down. "It's about the thing we talked about during lunch." Huang Shanshan said, "I advise you not to do such a stupid thing. Love is something that both parties are willing to do. Why do you have to do such a thing?" She didn't want any conflict. If the great immortal that Chen Min invited home was stronger than her, then she was useless. In order to invite this great immortal, Huang Shanshan spent a lot of money. The main thing was that she really liked Ding Xuehai. Other than Ding Xuehai's looks and education, he was also rich. Also, she had an indescribable jealousy towards Chen Min. Chen Min was younger than her, but the boyfriend she found was so good. Ning Shu said, "Oh, then I'll be leaving." "Thank you, Senior." Ning Shu left Huang Shanshan's rented apartment. He was just giving her a taste of her own medicine. Chapter 2807. Ning Shu felt that even if Huang Shanshan interfered in their relationship, it was just a betrayal. But she used such a method. It was creepy. She used such a method to break them up. Even if she used tricks to sow discord, didn't Huang Shanshan consider that someone would die? Since that thing was a good thing to attract evil ghosts, then you should enjoy it. Ning Shu returned home and turned on his computer. He found the shop where Huang Shanshan invited the great immortal and went in to communicate with the owner. Ning Shu asked, "I want to invite a great immortal." The shop owner asked, "What do you want? Money, luck and love, or something else?" Ning Shu said, "I want to invite the great immortal Li Li." "Can the great immortal Li Li grant any wish?" The shop owner replied, "Are you sure? The fox immortal is in charge of peach blossoms. The great immortal Li 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 is a grass immortal. It's not widely known. It can grant any wish." Ning Shu, "Then I want a promotion, a raise, to be a senior executive, and to marry a rich and handsome man." "Yes." Ning Shu, "Then I want to have a lot of money. Is that okay?" "Yes, it will happen if you are sincere." Ning Shu said excitedly, "Okay, it's my treat." The shop owner, "That's great. There are some instructions for the great immortal. You have to read them carefully. Also, the great immortal likes to eat. You should always prepare incense and candles at home." Ning Shu paid, and it was very expensive. It was almost a month's salary. He had to eat dirt. The express delivery was quite fast. It arrived in 2 days. Ning Shu received the express delivery and followed the instructions. He took a bath and burned incense. Then, he respectfully invited this thing to his bedroom. Then, he lit incense and sandalwood. The bedroom was filled with smoke. Coupled with the thing on the altar that looked like a cat but not a cat, a fox but not a fox, it was really indescribably strange. Ning Shu bowed and found that his faith was floating to the guy on the altar. Ning Shu reached out and grabbed the faith. He just didn't want to give it to this guy. The great immortal Li Li on the altar moved, appearing to be impatient and angry. Ning Shu immediately kowtowed and said, "Great immortal Li Li, if you give me a lot of money, I will worship you every day." Suddenly, there was a windfall from the sky. Other than the lottery, there was no other way. Then, his sister would not even buy the lottery. Let's see how a windfall from the sky would fall. Ning Shu followed the instructions and offered incense to the grass immortal every day, but he didn't give her any faith power. This great immortal had to move every day, especially when the faith in his mouth was gone. "Great immortal, I want a lot of money today." Ning Shu went out to work. He had to wait for Ding Xuehai to come back and settle this thing. By worshipping these great immortals, you would have to pay whatever you wanted. Incense was the most basic. Apart from incense, there was also some belief. Of course, they had to give him some benefits. After a day of work, Ning Shu did not see any money. He did not even see a single coin. When he returned home, he offered incense to the great immortal. "Great immortal, why didn't I see any money today?" "Sigh, great immortal, can you do it?" The great immortal on the altar moved. Ning Shu made some food and ate it slowly. Then, he went to sleep. There was a shrine in the bedroom. In the darkness, there was a red candle flame. It was a little creepy. Also, there was the smell of smoke. It was uncomfortable to sleep. Ning Shu was uncomfortable, but Huang Shanshan was extremely uncomfortable. For some reason, Huang Shanshan felt that the house was a little strange. It was gloomy. Occasionally, one or two ghosts would appear. Huang Shanshan was so scared that she screamed. She quickly knelt in front of the shrine. She closed her eyes and shouted, "Great immortal, save me. Great immortal, save me." In times of danger, Huang Shanshan could only ask great immortal Li Chang for help. She relied on the great immortal wholeheartedly. Her power of faith and vitality drifted to the great immortal on the altar. Some ghosts pounced towards Huang Shanshan, but they were all scared away by the great immortal's cat cry. Huang Shanshan opened her eyes. Seeing that there were no scary things around her, she immediately kowtowed to the great immortal. "Thank you, great immortal, for saving my life. Thank you, thank you." Huang Shanshan was so scared that her legs went soft. She sat on the ground and couldn't get up. She was sweating profusely and her hair was wet. Her face was extremely pale. Why did she attract these ghosts? If it wasn't for the great immortal, she would be in trouble today. Ning Shu didn't care about Huang Shanshan's situation. Huang Shanshan's situation was considered light. The client's house was packed with such things. Huang Shanshan had a great immortal in her house who ate incense. The great immortal would definitely not allow anything to snatch incense from him. Huang Shanshan was at most frightened, but her life was definitely not in danger. The next morning, Ning Shu got up and offered incense to the shrine. Then, he made a wish. "Great immortal, I want big money today. Big money, big money." As for faith power, he still didn't have it. Ning Shu had a lot of faith power, but he wouldn't give it to this great immortal. Ning Shu went out to work. It was still a calm and peaceful day. But today, after working overtime until 10 o'clock at night, on the way back to the neighborhood, he found a car accident on the side of the road. Moreover, it was a cash truck. It had crashed into a pole by the side of the road. The back door was already open. It was full of money. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, that great immortal was quite hardworking. If he didn't buy the lottery, he definitely wouldn't win the big prize. It definitely wouldn't be a windfall. He directly caused the cash truck to get into a car accident. Hee hee. Fortunately, there weren't many passers-by. Otherwise, the money inside would have been snatched away. However, how did the cash truck drive here? Ning Shu immediately went to check on the two drivers. They were slightly injured, but there were still signs of life. They seemed to be asleep. Ning Shu immediately used a public phone to call the police and called 120. When they heard that the cash truck had gotten into a car accident, they immediately sent the police. Ning Shu drew a talisman for each of the two cash truck drivers and inserted it in between their eyebrows. Of course, it was impossible to take the money from the cash truck. If you took it, it meant that you had to exchange it with that great immortal. When the police arrived at the scene of the accident, they found that there was indeed a cash truck. The driver had already woken up. He looked around at the busy surroundings in a daze. However, he immediately reacted and hurriedly checked the money behind. When he found that there was a lot of money, he heaved a sigh of relief. Under the escort of the police, he immediately transported the money to the bank to check if it was real or fake. What if someone had swapped it? The police were also looking for the person who called the police. Ning Shu returned home, washed his hands, and offered incense to the Great Immortal. Great Immortal, there's no money today. The Great Immortal on the altar moved and almost fell down. Ning Shu asked in surprise, Great Immortal, what's wrong? Don't be agitated. The Great Immortal is really spiritual. He actually moved. Ning Shu rubbed his hands and said with a smile. He just didn't give him any faith. The Great Immortal was probably cursing in his heart. But Great Immortal, how can I get rich? Sigh. Ning Shu sighed and got up to cook and sleep. He did whatever he needed to do. Chapter 2809. Anyway, the two of them took a long time to return the goods. The shop owner said that it was for their own good. Even if they returned the goods, they couldn't reject it. They had already offended the great deity. Ning Shu said, I've been sincerely worshipping the great deity. I've lost my patience and can't continue worshipping him. It's not over yet, so why can't I return the goods? It doesn't mean that I'm not sincere. Just give me an address and I'll send the goods over. Just give me an address and you won't have to pay for the postage. The shop owner was defeated by Ning Shu's ignorance. He gave him an address and said, it's for your own good that we're not letting you return the goods. If anything happens, don't come looking for us. Also, you'll be blacklisted from now on. If you want to hire the great deity again, we won't do business with you anymore. Ning Shu, I'm so scared. Ning Shu nodded. I won't worship the great deity anymore. You said that I could fulfill any wish, but I didn't. Shop owner, fucking retard. This kind of thing won't take effect in a few days. You won't be able to become a fatty in one bite. First, the great deity has to change your aura. Make your aura better. Then, things like money, career, and love will slowly change. You've been poor for more than 20 years. You'll become a millionaire in a few days. This retard wouldn't be able to pick up money even if it fell in front of her. She had never seen such a retard and ignorant person. It was true that a newborn calf wasn't afraid of a tiger. Ignorance was fearlessness. Anyway, if anything happened, this guy would be the unlucky one. Ning Shu, I want to return the goods. Shop owner, I didn't say that I won't return them. This is the address. Ning Shu looked at the address and copied it. Then, Ning Shu cupped his hands and said, I'm sorry, I have to return you. I'm really tight on money. The great deity. Ning Shu packed the great deity and waited for the delivery to send this guy away. After packing, it was already late. Ning Shu planned to send it away tomorrow. At night, Ning Shu fell asleep and had a nightmare. In the dream, there were all kinds of ghosts chasing after her. She opened her eyes and saw a pair of green eyes. A black cat was staring at her. It looked like the great deity on the altar. Meow. The black cat grinned viciously at Ning Shu, revealing its sharp teeth. Fuck, it's so cute. Ning Shu reached out and pulled the black cat into her arms. She hugged the black cat tightly. The black cat struggled with all its might and cried out shrilly. Ning Shu choked the black cat's neck and forced it to face her. Its green eyes were filled with an evil aura. Ah, why are you so cute? Ning Shu pinched its neck and swung it back and forth. Where did you come from? The black cat was under Ning Shu's control. It couldn't break free at all. His hands were so hot that it felt like it was going to melt. The black cat felt a sense of fear and tried to break free. But to no avail. Ning Shu looked at the black cat with a smile. He drew a talisman and trapped the black cat. It made the black cat look like an ordinary black cat. It couldn't escape at all. If it tried, the talisman would burn the black cat to ashes. Just like those ghosts, it would be destroyed. The black cat's green eyes were burning with evil. It wanted to teach this guy a lesson, but it didn't expect to be controlled. This guy was an expert. The black cat was furious. Ning Shu stroked its fur. Io, your fur is not very comfortable. As a cat, how can you not have smooth fur? How can you be so arrogant? How can you let the poop picker serve you well? The black cat's fur stood up. It opened its claws and attacked Ning Shu. Ning Shu squeezed his hand. The black cat's body burst into flames, burning the black cat's body. The black cat rolled around and let out a shrill cry. Finally, it rushed into the statue. However, there were cracks on the statue. It looked like it was going to break apart soon. Ning Shu shook the black dust off the bed and smiled. You think I can't deal with you? The reason why he didn't kill it was because he felt that this little cat was just a clone or a consciousness. It was used to collect faith and incense. The next day, Ning Shu got the courier to collect the item. Of course, he had to return the money. After all, he had so much money. He had to take back what belonged to him. Ning Shu packed his things and went to look for the person at the address. He had to wait until he didn't have to work. It wasn't that far. He should be able to find it in the next province. Ning Shu was about to go out when Ding Xuehai came back from his business trip. Ning Shu opened the door and saw Ding Xuehai carrying bags. These are the gifts I brought for you. Ding Xuehai put the bags on the coffee table and looked around the room. I feel that the room is brighter today. Of course, it was brighter because there weren't so many messy things in the room. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 28:10. Sure enough, it was her. Ning Shu shook his head and said, I don't think so. I just want to buy you a gift to deepen our relationship. What did Huang Shanshan hear? Are you guys practicing? Forget it. You can go in and take a look. Ning Shu opened the door of the bedroom. Ding Xuehai hesitated for a moment, but still walked in. There were no shrines in the bedroom, but there were clothes and boxes on the bed. I don't think so. Ning Shu spread his hands and said, You should trust me in the future, not others. Ding Xuehai sighed. I should trust you, but you have always been shy. Your senior told me that you have low self-esteem. If facing me can make you feel so inferior and give you so much pressure, will you break up with me? Good love is mutual. We rely on each other and learn from each other. I don't have low self-esteem. I can earn money and work, and I'm not bad looking. I have nothing to feel inferior about. Ning Shu said directly. It's good that you think so. Where are you going after packing your things? Ding Xuehai asked. A lie needed a lot of lies to cover it up. I'm going to a place. This place is very important. It's also considered a trip. I'm going to travel for 2 days in the neighboring province. Ning Shu said. Ding Xuehai asked, then can I ask why you're going? Guess. I'll tell you if you get it. By the way, do you often contact Huang Shanshan? Ding Xuehai said, isn't she your senior? Occasionally, she will tell me about your situation. She's your senior's friend, so I can't ignore her. Ding Xuehai was magnanimous, as if there was nothing strange about it. Also, she hasn't been in good health recently. She told me that she's sick. You should go and see her when you have time. Ning Shu almost rolled his eyes. Tell someone else's boyfriend that I'm not feeling well. Why didn't Senior tell me that she's not feeling well? If she told me, I would go and see her. Ning Shu said with a surprised face. She didn't tell you? Ding Xuehai raised his eyebrows. Ning Shu nodded. She didn't tell me. She hasn't been calling me much recently. By the way, did she tell you how she's doing? Ding Xuehai's expression was a little strange. Nothing much. We just chatted for a bit. Are you familiar with this senior of yours? They're from the same school. We know each other pretty well. We're friends, just normal friends. After talking to Ding Xuehai for a while, Ding Xuehai left without asking her where she was going. Before he left, he asked Ning Shu to try on the clothes to see if they fit. Ning Shu sent Ding Xuehai off with a smile. When he closed the door, his smile disappeared and he pursed his lips. Even if the client couldn't be with Ding Xuehai, Huang Shanshan couldn't take advantage of it. Therefore, other than the matter of the Great Immortal and the powder, there was also Huang Shanshan to deal with. Huang Shanshan was the one who was good at providing for the Great Immortal. He even used such methods to harm people's lives, forcing them to become lunatics in the eyes of others. What he said was obviously true, but the people around him, even the people closest to him, said that he was a lunatic. Was there anything wrong with that? There was nothing wrong with that. The client was always panicking, pointing everywhere and saying that there were ghosts. If it were anyone normal, they wouldn't believe it. Ning Shu turned off the water, electricity, and gas in the house. He closed the windows and curtains and dragged his suitcase to the address given by the shop owner. After sitting on the high-speed rail for a few hours, Ning Shu found the place. It was a relatively remote residential building. He found the house number. Using his mental strength, he saw the situation inside. There were shelves everywhere. On the shelves were all kinds of great immortals. The most common one was a black cat, but there were also fox immortals. There were several computers inside. In front of the computers, there were several customer service staff communicating with the customers on the other end of the computer. The keyboard was clicking. There were many orders. Using his third eye, he saw that the house was surrounded by a black aura. Everyone was shrouded in the black aura. Ning Shu didn't knock on the door. He didn't want to alert the enemy. This was only the sales segment. There was also the production segment. The production was the source. If these things were solved, the client wouldn't have any worries. Ning Shu found a room upstairs to stay. Using his mental strength, he could see the situation below the floor. Business was indeed good. Every night, he was still receiving orders until 12 o'clock. Moreover, at night, the black aura was even stronger. It was instinctive to be comfortable and hate work. In addition, many people hoped that pies would fall from the sky. They always felt that by praying to God and Buddha, they could become successful and count money while lying down. Human desires were endless. However, when people were weak, they wanted to satisfy the desires in their hearts through the smallest effort. It was too easy to get what one wanted by relying on offerings. Compared to their own hardships, this method was too easy. In addition, the pace of modern society was fast, and people were tired and lonely. This led to a large number of orders. Ning Shu was paying attention to the situation downstairs at all times. Every time, he would send out 3 full rounds of goods. Moreover, it cost a lot to hire a great immortal. It was so profitable. Of course, when there was no more stock, he would go to stock up as soon as possible. Ning Shu followed him to an abandoned factory. It was said to be abandoned, but the chimney was smoking, which meant that there were still people working inside. The person who bought the goods went in to pick out the porcelain statues of the great immortal. In Ning Shu's eyes, the whole factory was shrouded in black smoke. The road to the underworld was just like this. In addition to making statues, there were other things that were strange to Ning Shu. There were some things that even the old Taoist didn't recognize. Stuffing something like ashes into a cloth bag was a recipe for disaster. Ning Shu thought that the reason why those evil spirits appeared in the house was that his ashes were here. This was his home. There was a stranger in his house. Of course, they would attack. What was more, these evil spirits didn't enter the world of reincarnation. If they consumed their souls in the world of living beings, they would be annihilated sooner or later. In order to ensure that his soul was alive, what should he do? He instinctively wanted to eat and devour souls to survive. If he killed the stranger that occupied his house and ate him, he could live longer. This kind of thing couldn't be destroyed because people were empty and lonely. They would rely on illusory things. Even if these things really existed, they would just lose more things. Where did the black smoke come from? Ning Shu found that some spiders and insects would crawl into the statues that had been made in the factory. They seemed to think that it was something good. They would crawl into the statues so that they could enjoy incense in the future. Even though these statues were simple and crude, no one dared to treat them badly. Ning Shu was speechless. Walking in the factory filled with black smoke, ordinary people couldn't see it at all. If he closed his third eye, he wouldn't be able to see the black smoke, but he wouldn't be able to find the source of the black smoke. Chapter 28:11. Where did this black gas come from? After solving this problem, Huang Shanshan's great immortal statue would not have such great power. It would just be an ordinary great immortal statue. Maybe it was not a great immortal, but a monster. People's desires could usually give birth to monsters. Even in the world of reincarnation, there were also evil beasts. Under the faith of people, under the worship of incense, no one knew what kind of monster was born. Anyway, people did not believe in the real thing, but in the ever-changing Dharma. Faith could give birth to gods, not to mention monsters. Ning Shu avoided the guards and the patrolling people. She crouched and hid in the corner. She used her spiritual force to scan the whole factory. She did not miss a single inch. But in this factory, except for the black smoke with evil aura, she could not find the place where the black smoke came from. It was strange. Ning Shu turned over and over but did not find it. Instead, some black gas surged into her body, but it was all dissolved by the power of the fire sun in her body. Working in this kind of place, over time, the black gas would get into the body. Under the erosion, if not dead, it would be easy to be unlucky. What on earth was it? Ning Shu did not give up. She checked again, but still couldn't find it. Everything was so normal, except for the black smoke. She had to solve this matter quickly. She came here on the weekend, taking advantage of her day off. After solving it, she had to go back to work. It was not easy to find a suitable job. She could not lose the job of the client. At present, there was hope for a promotion and a salary increase. Moreover, The client had been working in this company since graduating from university. She would be more qualified after a while. If she was fired, it would be a pity. She would have to start all over again. Ning Shu hoped to do a perfect task. Only in this way could she live up to the title of a super task enforcer. She tried to do 100%. She had to solve this monster hiding in an unknown place, and then deal with Huang Shanshan. The staff who bought the goods picked a large truck of great immortal statues and left. Ning Shu stayed in the factory and scanned back and forth, but did not find anything unusual. When the factory workers were off work, Ning Shu slipped into the factory where the great immortal statues were made. As soon as she entered, she felt sweaty. The main reason was that there was a furnace inside. The furnace kept burning charcoal. There were all kinds of great immortals around. These great immortals all had a faint black smoke on them. Where did this black smoke come from? Ning Shu sat down, took out his phone, and entered the factory's address. Since he couldn't find the reason for the factory's disappearance, he could only start from the factory's predecessor. Perhaps this place used to be a graveyard, or a mass grave or something. He entered the address, and although the information was a little different from what Ning Shu had imagined, it wasn't too far off. Anyway, it was a place where the dead stayed. This place was far away from the funeral parlor, the place where the bodies were burned. However, after the funeral parlor was abandoned, this place had been empty. Moreover, this place was so remote that no developers came to develop it. Until now, the place shown was a funeral parlor. In fact, the funeral parlor was no longer there. It was a factory. This should be an illegal factory without industrial and commercial certification. At the thought of funeral parlors, Ning Shu thought of incinerators, which were used to incinerate corpses. Ning Shu stared at the bright red furnace. This furnace used to be used to burn corpses, but now it was used to refine pottery. He ignored this thing. Everything was born from here. Ning Shu stood up and looked around the furnace. Apart from some of the black smoke floating out of the chimney, the rest settled in the entire factory. Ning Shu reached out and touched the furnace. It was hot, but it was hot and cold to the touch. Her fingers were very hot, and a cold air rushed into her body. It was a kind of feeling. In other words, cats and dogs, the power of faith, vitality, fate, and merit all ended up in this furnace. She didn't think of anything but the furnace. In the past, it used to be an incinerator, but now it had become this furnace. The boss of this factory was really stingy. However, with a big chimney, they didn't have to rebuild it and reuse the waste. Moreover, this kind of thing was sold all over the world through the internet, and the business was especially good. There were also many comments, and the good reviews were all saying that the great immortal was very, very godly. Some said that their boyfriends had changed their minds, some said that they had become rich, and some said that their family's patience had improved. Although there were more and more people worshipping, the power of the furnace was increasing, and the things that people wanted were easier to achieve. This way, his believers would increase, and the power provided to him would increase. It was like a virus. If people relied on worshipping the great immortal in their work, life, partners, and even children, it was not good. People who were used to enjoying life would definitely not be able to do something difficult. People who worshipped would only overdraw their lives, souls, fate, and merit. Their own, their families, and their relatives. At the price of desire, incense, merit, and fate. Normal faith wouldn't lose anything. It was pure spiritual power. Ning Shu formed a seal with both hands and drew a talisman. She directly hit the talisman on the furnace. The furnace moved, and there was a sizzling sound inside. It was like water had been poured into a pot of oil, and thick black smoke was emitted. In an instant, the black smoke covered the room. Her eyes were covered in black, and she couldn't see at all. At the same time, the black smoke rushed into her body, and it was incomparably cold. Ning Shu directly released a huge fire dragon. The fire dragon swam in the room, dispersing the evil black smoke. It spat out flames at the furnace. The furnace trembled. It was obvious that the power of the fire sun made it feel a little painful. It let out a sinister sound and trembled slightly. Ning Shu didn't stay idle. He formed a seal with both hands and hit it directly at the furnace. He had seen all kinds of things become spirits, but he had never seen a furnace become a spirit. This was the first time in his life. As expected, there were all kinds of strange things in the world. Faith was really a good thing. It could even make a brick become a spirit. Under the joint attack of the fire dragon and Ning Shu, the corpse furnace was obviously angry. The porcelain placed at the side smashed towards Ning Shu. Ning Shu had to dodge these physical attacks, so he had no way to deal with the furnace. Bang, bang, bang. These porcelain rushed towards Ning Shu at an extremely fast speed. Ning Shu hurriedly dodged, and the porcelain hit the wall and shattered into pieces. The night watchman who was sleeping soundly and drooling suddenly felt as if he had been punched. His whole body was in so much pain that he couldn't help but get up. However, with this pain, the night watchman also woke up. The banging sound attracted the attention of the night watchman. Ning Shu saw someone coming over with a flashlight. He felt a little regretful. However, he definitely couldn't be caught. If he was caught, he would definitely suffer. He directly climbed out of the window and secretly ran out of the factory. Chapter 28:12. Ning Shu jumped over the wall of the factory and ran for a while. She looked back at the factory that was shrouded in black gas. Anyway, she couldn't be caught. Who would believe that she snuck into the factory for a furnace? They might suspect that she had stolen something. Ning Shu sighed. She had alerted the enemy. She didn't expect this furnace to be so strong. This was originally an ordinary world, but because of people's beliefs and desires, this furnace was very strong. On the other hand, she couldn't use anything other than peerless martial arts. The restrictions of the plane were very big. Her opponent had unlimited buffs and many people worshipped and believed in her. On the other hand, she was alone and it was very inconvenient to do things. There were many things to worry about. She would go back first. If she really couldn't do it, she would go back and cultivate for a while. In short, she had to solve everything in the shortest time possible. Ning Shu returned to her residence and treated the scratches on her body. Then, she called the police. The factory was releasing too much smoke and the people around couldn't stand it. Since she wanted to solve the furnace, she had to get rid of the people first. It was best to shut it down for a period of time. She felt that this factory should be operating illegally. If she reported it, the other party would definitely take it seriously. Because in this situation, she would face a fine. There was no point in not taking the initiative to take the money. Even if she didn't stop working, Ning Shu would think of a way to set up a huge yang gathering formation around the factory to gather the surrounding yang qi. This could slowly consume the furnace's power. Ning Shu thought that 2 days would be enough to solve this furnace. She didn't expect this furnace to be much stronger than expected. After calling the police, Ning Shu took out her phone to check the shop downstairs. She wanted to see how long this shop had been open from the shop. It was actually a 6-year-old shop. This shop had been open for 6 years and had been doing this kind of business. There were too many things that had been sold. Just looking at the comments, there were more than 100,000. Some people didn't even write comments. It was a shocking number. Also, the great deities were invited home. Some were worshipped secretly alone, and some were worshipped together as a family. The population increased again. Seeing so many people, Ning Shu felt a bit of a toothache. There were so many people assisting her, but she was alone. The other side had so many people. This was not fair at all. Out of respect, there should be very few people who wanted to return the goods. They were afraid that something bad would happen. There shouldn't be many people who return goods like her. Even if he didn't worship the great immortal, he wouldn't return the goods. She should at least have a cheat. This was clearly not a world of monsters and ghosts, but there was such a powerful existence. She was the only one who was restricted, but the other party was not. How was he going to fight? Moreover, Ning Shu was worried that the furnace would move. He didn't know to what extent it had cultivated to. Ning Shu simply didn't want to think about it anymore. She formed a seal with both hands and set up a yang gathering array. It was because the yin qi downstairs was too heavy that it affected her. How was she going to continue cultivating? Anyone who was in this line of work would be more or less spared by the yin qi. Now, it looked like it was very profitable. As for the future, it was hard to say. It might not be a short life, but something might happen to it. However, this had nothing to do with Ning Shu. She just had to deal with the big furnace. Early the next morning, Ning Shu went to the factory and prepared to set up a yang gathering array around the factory. At the very least, it could disperse the black qi in the factory. To set up a very large yang gathering array required a lot of energy. Moreover, the larger the array, the harder it was to control. The slightest mistake would cause the large array to completely collapse. The only bad thing about the modern plane was the problem of spiritual energy. Transportation and communication were the most convenient. It was also very convenient to do missions. Ning Shu almost drained all the yang fire energy in her body and set up a yang gathering array. Up. Ning Shu stretched out her finger and set up the array with a head full of sweat. When the yang gathering array was in effect, the whole factory exploded with black smoke that was as thick as ink. This black qi with evil yin qi was slowly corroding the array. It seemed that the furnace felt threatened and reacted quickly. Fuck, was it going to fight? Ning Shu pressed her palm on the ground and poured all the yang fire energy in her body into the array. The array burned with invisible flames. The battle was in full swing, but the workers in the factory didn't feel anything. They put the mud that had already been shaped into the shape of the furnace to be baked and finally shaped. Living in these plumes of black smoke. Because of the array, there was more black smoke than usual, making the workers feel breathless. They all ran out of the factory to breathe in the fresh air. Ning Shu felt her meridians hurt. The yang fire energy in her body had been sucked dry. However, the black smoke was so thick that even the sun couldn't penetrate it. Fuck, how many desires and beliefs did this thing absorb? She didn't know if it had developed consciousness. What to do, what to do? The opponent's firepower was too strong. She was alone and helpless. Ning Shu had no choice but to use the method of the old Taoist. She took out the rooster blood and cinnabar she had collected from her bag. She dipped her finger in blood and drew a talisman on the wall. These talismans faintly shone with a golden light. Ning Shu drew the talisman at a specific location and didn't want to be discovered. Without the ability to be invisible, in order to not be discovered, she was going all out. If she was really discovered, she could only attack the opponent's mental strength and make them unconscious. While drawing the talisman, she also had to cultivate and absorb the yang fire energy to support the yang gathering array. Multitasking was quite a tough job. The more powerful Ning Shu's attacks were, the more black smoke there was. It was clearly the dog days of summer, but now the whole factory was gloomy. The whistling wind was like the roar of evil spirits. These workers were trembling all over. Some of them even had hallucinations and saw things like ghosts and monsters. The workers were scared out of their wits and fled the factory in a panic. Their expressions were so frightened that they were distorted. When they returned to the factory, it was as if they were hidden in the thick fog. Ah! These workers screamed and ran away. Without these workers, Ning Shu let go of his hands and feet. He directly climbed over the wall and entered the factory. The furnace was burning fiercely. Its walls were also red, giving people a feeling that it was very hot. In fact, it was the opposite. The entire delivery room gave people a gloomy feeling. It was even very cold. Waves of coldness drilled into the body. It was very cold. Ning Shu's fingers were dipped in chicken blood and cinnabar. He wanted to draw a talisman on the furnace. However, with every step he took, his entire body seemed to be frozen. His entire body was stiff. His blood froze. Ning Shu almost thought that he was going to be frozen to death. He was going to be frozen into an ice sculpture. The young fire energy in his body circulated, dispelling the coldness/BK. Chapter 28:13. As soon as his blood-stained finger touched the furnace wall, it froze and became one with the furnace wall. Ning Shu's consciousness was pulled into a raging inferno, and within the inferno, there was a person. It was a naked girl with crimson red hair. At this moment, she was glaring at Ning Shu. "Who are you? Why are you doing this to me?" Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect this furnace to have developed consciousness. It didn't look young. She looked to be 11 or 12 years old. Her mind wasn't mature, but she was still intelligent. "Because you hurt me. Of course I have to deal with you." The girl's scarlet eyes were glaring. The color of magma flowed in them. Perhaps because she had absorbed too much desire, she looked particularly irritable and evil. However, she also had the power of faith, causing this girl to have a split personality. However, even if it was faith, it wasn't pure faith. This kind of faith came from the fact that you could give me benefits. If you didn't give me benefits, I wouldn't believe. This kind of faith was accompanied by desire. People always believed in themselves. Even if there was a god, they could kill a god. "How did I hurt you? With your ability, how can I hurt you?" The girl shouted angrily. However, she was afraid of Ning Shu and didn't take the initiative to attack. Ning Shu said, "Let's put it this way. I'm also a great immortal. Someone exchanged something with me to get rid of you." The girl's expression softened. "Since we're the same, why are you targeting me? I already said that the mission is to destroy you. Why is there a reason?" Ning Shu said. You. Let's see who will kill who. I've never provoked you. You came looking for death. Even if you die, you can't blame me." Ning Shu snorted. "You're a monster." "How am I a monster? I was born with the faith of humans. I'm a god. It was humans who believed in me and made me a god. What right do you have to say that I'm a monster? If I'm not a god, why do those humans believe in me and beg in front of me, eager to get what they want? I'm a god." Ning Shu only looked at the agitated girl with an indifferent expression. Perhaps because she was born in fire, her temperament was particularly irritable. Her face was pale, but black veins crawled all over her face. Black blood flowed within. Perhaps without Ning Shu's arrival, this girl could have cultivated and absorbed the faith and incense of humans. Perhaps she could have truly transformed into a human form. "As long as you leave, I won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, I'll throw you into the fire and burn you to become my nourishment." The girl tried to negotiate with Ning Shu. However, he was also trying to show off the arrogance of a god, which made him look neither fish nor fowl. Ning Shu shook his head. "I won't leave. Why must you target me? I've already let you go, but you're still so aggressive." More black veins crawled on the girl's face. Not only on his face, but also on his body. The blood vessels crisscrossed, and one could even feel the blood flowing inside. "I'm going to succeed. I'm going to succeed. What do you want?" Ning Shu sat down. "What did you succeed in?" "I became a human. Aren't you a god?" Why do you want to become a human? I want to become a god with a body. Ning Shu grunted and directly released a huge amount of spiritual energy to attack her. The girl didn't miss a beat. She covered her head and screamed in pain. The sea of fire in her consciousness burned fiercely. Ning Shu hurriedly returned to his body. If he was frozen like this for too long, his body would have problems. This was what the girl was planning. She would pretend to be comfortable and relaxed, then give him another blow. When his consciousness returned to his body, Ning Shu shivered. It was too cold. It was clearly a furnace, but it was so cold. Ning Shu dipped his hands in cinnabar and chicken blood and directly drew talismans on the surface of the furnace. The talismans flickered and merged into the furnace wall. The furnace's flames burned fiercely with extreme anger. Coldness spread out from the furnace. Ning Shu hurriedly dodged. He steeled his heart and used a bit of merit. This bit of merit was directly used on the young congregating array under his feet. With a bit of merit, the young congregating array became much more resilient. It flickered with golden light and gathered the surrounding yang qi, igniting an ethereal flame. The thick black gas dissipated under the roasting of the yang qi flames. It melted quickly like snow meeting the sun. The black gas was quickly evaporated. The gloomy factory became bright, so bright that it was dazzling. The young congregating array gathered yang qi, causing the surroundings to heat up. In addition, it was the dog days of summer, a place where yang qi was abundant. Under such yang qi, the furnace's power gradually weakened. She let out a hysterical anger. Why are you doing this to me? I am a god. I am the god of humans. I will not die. As long as humans believe in me, I will not die. As long as there is faith, I can become stronger. Small cracks appeared on the furnace wall, but the girl still vowed solemnly and exploded with even more power. At the same time, those great immortals who settled down in thousands of households absorbed the power of those who worshipped them. This power was continuously transmitted to the furnace. The great immortal statues that were burned by this furnace were equivalent to tentacles of the furnace. The power that the tentacles obtained was continuously transmitted to the furnace. Originally, the furnace was already cracked, but under the repair of this power, the cracks of the furnace were actually repaired. Moreover, the furnace's power was increasing. Ning Shu clenched his teeth. Why was this thing so difficult to deal with? The power of faith was really strong. Moreover, the furnace was not lying. Faith gave birth to a god, but if a god had no faith and no incense, then even a god would fall. Ning Shu's expression was a little ugly. The other party was so powerful that she could draw power from the bodies of those who worshipped her, no matter what kind of power it was, spiritual power or spiritual power. She could make the furnace's power endless. Why can't you believe in me? I can feel that you have a strong faith. The girl was very angry. As long as you believe in me, I can give you everything. Ning Shu, I have invited a great immortal, but your great immortal is not very good. You did not achieve everything I wanted. The furnace could not give what she wanted at all. The furnace's power was getting stronger and stronger, but it was also getting more and more sinister. If before, it was voluntarily offered by those who worshipped it, then now the furnace was forcibly taking away something from them. Her actions did not make her a god. Thick black smoke came out of the furnace. The black smoke shrouded the yang gathering formation, causing the formation to be unable to gather the surrounding yang qi. The factory, which had been brightly lit, now became gloomy and scary again. /BK Chapter 28:14. The whole factory was wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. All day long, the temperature dropped again. It was cold and gloomy. Ning Shu directly poured a bowl of chicken blood and cinnabar on the furnace wall. It made a sizzling sound, as if sulfuric acid was poured on the ground, bubbling. My body, my body. The girl screamed in horror and anger, I want to kill you, I want to kill you. His body did not have so much fire-yang energy. Even if there was a little, Ning Shu had to ensure that his body could function. With such cold evil energy, he had to ensure that his body had fire-yang energy. Otherwise, his body would be eroded and he would not live long. Ning Shu had no choice but to take out 4 merit points and add them to the yang gathering array. He used the power of merit to drive the array and make it work. Being bound by the thick black smoke, the array could not function normally. He could only use merit points. This time, he had to solve it thoroughly. He could not drag it on. With the blessing of merit points, the array shone with golden light. The golden light directly penetrated the layers of rolling black smoke. The black smoke dissipated, and the surroundings became bright again. The merit points increased the power of the array. Within the range of the array, the air was distorted by the heat. Ning Shu absorbed the fire-yang energy. Taking advantage of this powerful yang energy, Ning Shu arranged a thunder-attracting array. Extreme yang lightning had a great restraining power and lethality against evil spirits. The 2 arrays were stacked on top of each other, and a dark cloud gathered in the middle. The dark cloud was brewing thunder and lightning. The furnace felt the danger and tried to extract the vitality of the believers. Many believers fainted because of the sudden loss of power. Boom! The thunder and lightning penetrated the roof and hit the furnace. Several cracks suddenly appeared on the furnace. Ah! The furnace wailed angrily, why are you doing this to me? I am God. You bold human, you dare to do such a thing to God. In the name of God, I curse you. You will die a horrible death. You will die a horrible death. The furnace had never met such a disrespectful human. Those who believed in her were all respectful and didn't dare to be negligent. In particular, the clouds in the sky were brewing a second bolt of lightning, causing the furnace to be both shocked and angry. I curse you, curse you. Ning Shu immediately felt the power of a curse, with a strong sense of malice, pouncing towards her. However, the power of the curse was neutralized by Ning Shu. Did he really think that the faith halo that this sister spent money to exchange for was just for show? Why? Why are you fine? The furnace was furious. Why was the curse power of the gods useless now? In the past, whenever a believer was disrespectful or offended her, she would curse them. And that person would become very unlucky and suffer unspeakably. Why was she fine? The stove was very flustered. It had a kind of panic and horror of being at the end of the road. It's because I didn't fulfill your wish that you're treating me like this. I'm a god revered by tens of thousands of people. What you're doing is disgraceful. The voice of the stove was full of bravado and fear. Boom! Another bolt of lightning struck the furnace. The furnace screamed in pain and mournful. The sharp voice rang in Ning Shu's ears. The huge sound wave caused the ceramics in the factory to explode. The power of the yang energy and the lightning caused the furnace to be in pain. I won't be destroyed, I won't. I want to curse you to die in the most miserable way in the world. Go die. The girl left the furnace and directly charged towards Ning Shu in the form of her consciousness. Ning Shu formed a seal with both hands. The talisman hit the girl's body, causing her body to become even weaker. Now, not only were her blood vessels black, even her body had become pitch black. Her scarlet eyes were filled with tyranny, greed and despair. You don't look like an ordinary person. I want to take over your body. I want to kill you. The girl knew that she had to abandon her body, the furnace. She did not know how she was born. She felt a surge of power wake up. After waking up. Because this surge of power made her even stronger. She had always been good. She imagined becoming a god, a god that was admired. But everything was destroyed by this woman. Why? Ning Shu ignored the girl. His hands flew up and formed a seal. The speed was so fast that afterimages appeared. After coming into contact with a talisman as tall as a person, the girl's scarlet eyes flashed with fear. Without thinking, she threw herself back into the furnace. But the talisman hit the furnace directly. At the same time, a bolt of lightning covered the furnace. Under the two heavy blows, the furnace walls were covered with cracks. The furnace fire became weaker and weaker. It was like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished. Please let me go. I was wrong. The furnace realized that this woman really wanted to kill it. Unlike ordinary people who admired and feared it, she wanted to save her life first. Since its birth, the furnace had always been worshipped and respected by people. It had never compromised with a human like this. You can't. Killing and eliminating the roots was the root of the problem. This time, she let it go. If she kept pestering the client was just an ordinary human who had no power at all. What? The furnace did not understand why the other party was still so aggressive and unwilling to let her go. She had already lowered her voice. She was going too far. Even if she was going to die, she would drag someone down with her. She was going to become a god. But she was not willing to fall short like this. Ning Shu flicked her fingers and formed another talisman. The talisman hit the furnace wall and the flames on the furnace wall were completely extinguished. With a rumbling sound and the sound of thunder, the huge furnace collapsed. It was completely useless. The furnace's soul, which was so weak that it could not see, wanted to escape. But Ning Shu's talisman wrapped around its body. It could not move. Let me go. You've already beaten me to this state. What else do you want? The furnace still wanted to escape. It wanted to attach itself to a great immortal Dharma idol and rely on people's faith to start anew. But it was caught. What else could she do? If she really pissed her off, she would use the last of her strength to curse this woman. Ning Shu was about to say something, but someone was coming this way. He immediately grabbed the talisman and jumped out of the window to escape. The workers who came back saw a mess. The great immortal Dharma idols that had been made had all exploded. The worst thing was that the furnace had actually collapsed. It was pitch black. Everyone was stupefied. What was going on? The furnace actually collapsed. It was like a supernatural event. Ning Shu ran back to his residence. The girl with the talisman was struggling violently. She felt the existence of the great immortal Dharma idols below. If she directly jumped into these Dharma idols, she could escape and start anew. /BK Chapter 28:15. Ning Shu looked at the girl. Her soul had shrunk to the size of a middle finger. But there was still a thick baleful aura and black energy around her. Let's negotiate. Let me go and I won't bother you anymore. Revenge was a dish best served cold. He had to wait until she grew up again. Moreover, there were many people worshipping her. As long as her foundation was there, she could start anew. But she lost the chance to develop more believers. After all, her main body was destroyed and she couldn't create more celestial images. Ning Shu touched his chin and looked at the girl. Her body was pitch black and she gave off black energy. What good will it do for me to let you go? Ning Shu's expression was calm. He formed a seal and didn't want to talk nonsense with her. This girl's words couldn't be trusted. Leaving her alive was leaving a scourge for the person who entrusted her. When the girl saw the talisman, she was so afraid that her body trembled. She shouted with a sharp voice, "As long as you don't kill me, I will give you all my faith." I don't care about your faith at all. It's all about desire. Using such faith power would contaminate his soul. Then what will it take for you to let me go? Please let me go. It is not easy for me to have my own consciousness. I will do anything you want me to do. The girl begged Ning Shu. Even though she was begging, her red eyes were filled with hatred and hatred. She wanted him to let her go. If he let her go, she would be a huge threat. The biggest problem in this world should be this furnace. But this was a normal world and there were no people with special abilities. No one was able to destroy this thing. This should be the mission, to complete the wishes of the person who entrusted it. There was no conflict. Ning Shu expressionlessly placed the talisman on the girl. The girl cried out in pain, I have already told you my conditions. Why won't you let me go? Why? Ning Shu formed another talisman. The girl's soul became weaker and weaker. It was so transparent that it was almost invisible. Her face was filled with fear and unwillingness. I want to become a god. I haven't become a god yet. I can't die. I can't die. I can't accept this. I curse you. You will die a horrible death. I curse you with the last of my strength. A cursed black smoke drifted towards Ning Shu, but before it could get close to his glabella, it was dissolved by an invisible force. You have been cursed by me. You will think that you will die in the most terrifying and loneliest way possible. Ning Shu didn't care at all. He directly pressed the girl to death, and her laughter stopped abruptly. Annihilation had disappeared. At the same time that the girl disappeared, the Dharma forms of the great immortals downstairs all collapsed and exploded. Apart from the Dharma idol of the great immortal downstairs, all the great immortals enshrined on the altars collapsed. What happened? Why are all these things collapsing? Everyone was shocked and puzzled. They did not understand what had happened to the great immortal they worshipped. However, some of the people who had fainted and had their vitality sucked away slowly regained consciousness. Of course, the things that had been absorbed couldn't be returned either. Without these things, a person's lifespan and soul power would be greatly reduced. And without the support of the great immortal, those people's lives would return to their previous state. The goods were all gone. The boss downstairs still had to restock, but when he arrived at the factory, he found that the entire factory had been destroyed. Okay. So many orders. This was cutting off his source of income. The boss felt a little scared. He felt that he should change his business. All the goods exploded at the same time. Even the furnace exploded. What a strange thing. Even the boss, who didn't believe in these things, felt his hair stand on end. After dealing with the furnace, Ning Shu packed his things and went to the largest temple in the city. Then, he immediately took a car home. He had to go to work tomorrow. He still had to go home to work. Recently, he had been taking leave. The company should have something to say. After taking the high-speed train for a few hours, he returned home and happened to meet Ding Shuahai at the entrance of the neighborhood. Ding Shuahai got out of the car and asked, I sent you a message. Why didn't you reply? Ning Shu quickly took out her phone. There were indeed a few messages, but she didn't have a free phone at that time. Sorry, I didn't see it. Ning Shu carried his suitcase upstairs. Ding Shuahai took the suitcase from Ning Shu's hand. What are you doing in the neighboring province? Ning Shu said with a smile, I told you. You might not believe me, but I went to destroy the ghosts. Ding Shuahai, Ning Shu took out the key to open the door. Ding Shuahai walked in with the suitcase and said, I feel that you have become a little mysterious recently. Can you tell me what you are doing in the neighboring province? Who are you going to meet? Chen Min, are you really not hiding anything from me? This. Ning Shu took out the amulet. The amulet was quite exquisite. It even had a faint smell of incense. This is. Ding Shuahai's expression immediately turned ugly when he saw this thing. Ding Shuahai especially disliked this kind of superstitious thing, especially when he heard Huang Shanshan say that Chen Min was going to do something. Ning Shu said, "I have been feeling uneasy recently, so I specially went to the temple next door to ask for an amulet. I also asked for one for you. If you don't believe me, you can go to the temple in the neighboring province and ask." Ding Xuehai sighed. "It's not that I don't believe you. It's just that I can't figure you out recently. I don't know why, but I have been hurting all over recently. Other than taking medicine, I just want to feel at ease. If you don't want the amulet, then forget it. It was consecrated by a master." She had asked for an amulet in the temple, but she had replaced it with the one she had drawn. It really had the effect of exorcism. If Ding Xuehai didn't want it, then forget it. Ning Shu opened the fridge and prepared to cook something. He asked Ding Xuehai, "Do you want to eat?" Ding Xuehai nodded. Ning Shu cooked 2 bowls of noodles. Ding Xuehai found a fried egg at the bottom of the bowl. "Dang dang dang, this is the supreme fried egg for you." Ding Xuehai couldn't help but laugh. With this laugh, his whole body warmed up. "Here, eat. You must be tired after 2 days out." Ding Xuehai gave the fried egg to Ning Shu. "Since you are going to the temple, why don't you let me go with you?" So this matter was not over yet. Ning Shu ate a mouthful of noodles. "I really went to catch a ghost and did a ritual on the way." Ding Xuehai was speechless. "Is that really it? You can go to the temple and ask. I have nothing to hide." Ning Shu also felt a little tired. He had a big fight with the stove, and when he came back, he still had to face Ding Xuehai's suspicion. Ning Shu rubbed his eyebrows. "I want to sleep for a while." Ding Xuehai nodded. "Okay, rest well if you are tired. By the way, your friend Huang Shanshan is not in good health recently. Take some time to visit her." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.